If you're on, that was host.
If you're on Zoom at home, not in Wildcat Chamber, can you type in the chat if you can? Oh, I'm seeing thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Give us just a sec to get a few more things pulled up, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, awesome. We're gonna give it just 1 or 2 more minutes to make sure everyone can get on. I'm still letting people into the meeting, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, sorry for the slight delay, everyone. Our parliamentarian isn't here, so Max, last year's parliamentarian, is stepping in to help out. So we'll be getting everything worked out in just a sec. I just want to make sure we're not missing anyone, and then we'll get started. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call this meeting of Student Senate to order. We will forego the Pledge of Allegiance because there's no flag anywhere. So instead, I will just go ahead and kick us off with our land acknowledgement. I want to begin our Student Senate meeting that's taking place tonight on Thursday, March 25th, 2021 with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is the home to 4 federally recognized Native nations, the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band, Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was and still is stolen land that was acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. With that, I am now going to turn it over to Maggie, who's going to lead us through our first roll call.
Thanks, Nate. Atchison. Bain. Bellamy.
Here.
Booze. Dear. Sorry. My little spreadsheet got all out of whack. Here. And then Brown is here. Thank you. Bruce. Brummett. Burke.
Here.
Clements.
Here.
Colburn. Cone. Crosslow. Dillevue.
Here.
Doc. Dunlap.
Here.
Frederick.
Here.
Glasscock. Grills.
Here.
Gromez. Hamlin.
Here.
Harmon. Hurd.
Here.
Heimerman. Hernandez. Hutchings. Jambunathan. James Rose.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Koch, Cruson,
Here.
awesome. Levi, Manners, McKee, Muthukumar, Knoll,
Here.
Nunnink,
Here.
Phillips, Porter, thank you. Purdy. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Panicatu. Purdy, thank you. Richenberg, Rodriguez,
Here.
Rossi,
Here.
Salmon, Shear, Snyder Ben,
Here.
Snyder Blaine,
Here.
Vance, hold on. Volgamore, is he excused? Okay, sorry, I didn't have that marked. Wallace,
Here.
Ward, Wells,
Here.
Willis Jackson,
Here.
Willis Reese, and Windholtz.
Here.
Is there anyone whose name I did not call? Okay, with that, we have 45 senators present and 5 excused. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. With that, we will continue on with our agenda tonight. I sent it in the chat. I don't know why my live transcription option is not working. I'm just clicking on it and it does nothing. So I'm going to keep troubleshooting that while we go through the meeting. To start off with though, in first open period, we have no speakers scheduled for first open period at this time. Is there anyone who would like to speak for first open period? Please indicate so now in the chat if you would like to. Seeing none, we will then continue on with the agenda. So we'll move to approval of the minutes. The minutes were distributed last night. Can I get a motion to approve them? I already see one in the chat from Caucus Leader Atchison. Moving to approve it, seconded by Croslow. Are there any objections to approving the minutes as they stand currently? Seeing none, those minutes will stand approved. Thank you all. With that, we'll move on to our announcements for the week. And so for announcements this week, first up, the second night of new Senator orientation was earlier this evening. I hope everyone who went enjoyed it. We did a mock Senate meeting, which was kind of fun. And we debated whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich or not. So that was a fun time. The next date for new Senator orientation, just so everyone is aware, is Thursday, April 8th. It is not next week. It is on April 8th. So that will be right before that new term of senators starts. That will again be here in the College of Business building. Details will be sent to all new senators directly. So please just be on the lookout for that. Next up, just an announcement on the end of year ice cream social. I filed a facilities request with facilities before the deadline they said I needed to file it for, and I still have not heard back on whether or not my reservation is being accepted or not. So please be on the lookout for more information from me early next week about like our end of year banquety ice cream social event. It is going to be held, if we're having it in person, at Memorial Stadium. So it should be a place that is way too overly large for like all the members of our organization. So we should be able to easily socially distance there. So again, more details will be coming soon, and I might also be doing a sign-up sheet once I hear that we have it, just to ensure that we order enough like ice cream and goodies for everyone. So that'll be kind of fun there. And then we will be kicking off Student Senate next Thursday at 7 with our more like formal banquet where we announce awards and things like that. That'll happen during first open period next week. So for anyone who's interested in that, just be on the lookout for that. We'll probably try to have everyone from all the branches hop on that Zoom call so we can just celebrate everyone's accomplishments in the end of the term. Another reminder again that Student Wellbeing Director Julia Howey just wanted everyone to know that if you are interested in volunteering to help distribute COVID-19 vaccines, that help would be appreciated. The contact information for that is included on the agenda. For our fourth announcement, following up from last week, we're actually doing SGA t-shirts. We're ordering them now so people both in the new term can get them, but if you're an outgoing senator who would also like a t-shirt as you leave, that option is present for you as well. That is being facilitated by our parliamentarian, Michael Arnold, who is not here tonight, unfortunately, but you can just Venmo him. They are $10 for a shirt. He also wanted everyone to know there is no Frocket, as was discussed last week. It was to keep it cost effective for everyone because it would be a flat $10 if we did not include that. And he thought that was more appropriate. I think I agree with his sentiment. So please have that, and please have your size in the Venmo message that you sent him. He'll also be here in person next week if you would like to pay cash for that. If you have any questions, please email him at his email, or you can even text him at his phone number that's on the agenda. I did want everyone to know that nominations for the awards that are going by nominees will be closing tonight at midnight. So if you have any nominees for Senator of the Year, the Susan M. Scott Outstanding Female Member Award, or the SGA Outstanding Advocate Award, please do that now, just to make sure that we have a full slate of nominees for those. I did want to let everyone know, just kind of on a side little update, that the SGA Outstanding Advocate Award, someone approached me with naming it after Bernard Franklin, who actually was the first Black student body president at K-State, which really cool story. He won his student body presidential campaign by write-in votes. How cool is that? But so I actually contacted him last week to see if he would be willing to have this award named after him. And he said yes. He sent me this really gracious email. He felt super honored that people still knew him and thought of him. If you've never seen him speak before, he's one of the coolest speakers ever. So I highly recommend get a chance if he's ever on campus in the future getting to talk to him. But we're actually going to call that the Bernard Franklin SGA Outstanding Advocate Award, which is going to be kind of cool. So I just wanted to give everyone a short update on that. Applications for all of those positions are found on the agenda. I did want to direct people's attention to two of them: the Chief of Staff application and Judicial Branch application. Both close a week from today. So if you are interested in being Chief of Staff for the Executive Branch next year, or being on the Judicial Branch, you would need to fill out those applications within the next week. Judicial before Student Senate next week. Chief of Staff will close at midnight that night. So be on the lookout for that. I would highly encourage everyone, if you're interested in any position, to apply for them. If you have questions about any of them, I would happily answer those. And the contact for the current person in those positions is also found on the agenda. Proxies for tonight are Atchison for Volgamore, Ward for Carlson, and then I have four more who notified me before Senate. So that's Grills for Diaz de Leon, Crosslow for Doc, Panikatu for Shunjay, and then Snyder Blaine for Carr. So we have all of those. And then the SGA member of the week this week are Senators Marta Richenberg and Senator Rachel Gromez for their work creating materials and graphics for SGA's Wellness Wednesdays. For the month of March, the Governmental Relations Committee has been creating information for students about mental health and physical well-being. And Marta and Rachel have been instrumental in these efforts, and we'd really like to thank them for their time and dedication. So can we get a round of applause for Marta and Rachel? Awesome. Not much on the upcoming events calendar because a lot of committees had their final meeting this past week. How sad is that? But I did want to draw everyone's attention to, again, the ice cream social at 6 next Thursday with details to come. And then finally, for our quote of the week this week, it is, "Choose to be optimistic, it feels better." And that's from the 14th Dalai Lama. With that, we will move on with our agenda. Let me go back to the front page. So we have no commendations or appointments tonight. So with that, we will now move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who have a report for the body? If you do, please indicate so in the chat. Looks like Chair Booz has a report. I'm bringing him the microphone.
Yeah, hi everyone. As the chair of the Senate Operations Committee, I just wanted to let you know that we had a hearing regarding deciding the original Hope and Human Sciences senators for next year, because we had 4 people who had 1 vote as a write-in who were interested in 3 spots. And so on Monday, we had that sort of hearing, got written responses from 2 people. It was fairly short notice, but we wanted to decide it before we introduced the bill to certify the election results, which is being introduced today. And so we're going to appoint the, I remember the name of the person who is getting sworn in later, which would be Lauren Lane, will be sworn in later. The other 3 who accepted will be sworn in on April 8th. So got any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, we also have 2 bills that we're introducing today as well relating to the statutes. So just take a look at that. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Are there any questions for Chair Booz? Seeing none, we will now move on. Are there any other committee chairs who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, we'll now move on to directors' reports. Are there any directors who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, we'll then move on with our agenda. We have no college caucus time and no minor allocation, so I guess we're already in final action for tonight. That's pretty fast. So with that, we'll move to Bill 43, which is currently being screen shared right now. I'm actually the author on that, so I guess I'll just go ahead and kick us off from here. There was one change made to it. This was in the Senate Operations Committee, and the change that was made was the last line was added in italics. That's on line 48 through 50. That was added as well. So for a refresher for everyone, this will be my debate in the positive, but for a refresher for everyone, these are amendments to the SGA Constitution regarding the credit hour requirement to be a student senator. So right now, you basically have to be a full-time student in order to be in student government. That's one thing that's actually been talked about over the past 2 years is amending this. And I personally am in favor of this change, which would move it to be only 1 credit hour to be a student senator. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the work that student government does, I think is applicable to you, whether or not you're in 12 credit hours or not. People have a litany of reasons why they might not be in 12 credit hours, which could be for economic reasons. It could be really just time reasons. There's just a whole host of reasons. And I'm really of the opinion that I don't think it matters someone's educational plan or degree path because the work that we do impacts all students. I think that as long as you're enrolled in at least 1 credit hour at K-State and you want to spend time in this body, I see no reason to tell you no. Again, this is a conversation that's been had for a couple of years, and I think that that's a really good and positive change for us. It actually happened this year where we had 1 student senator who was on the election results and had 9 credit hours. Senate Operations had a hearing and decided to allow that person to be a senator, but I think the hearing was unnecessary, and that's kind of even what was discussed in that committee when I went there, is that if that person was willing to show up and be involved, I don't think that their level of involvement really matters. So please vote yes on this for those reasons. I did want to let everyone know that the other changes that are included in this is we strike the union governing board GPA requirement just because we are not union governing board. I don't know why that was ever included in the first place, if I'm completely honest. So that is being struck right now. And then the other thing that was the new change added on 48 to 50 is we got rid of, if you are graduating like in the fall, we're eliminating that requirement that you can't be a senator. So, you know, if you graduate halfway through the year, you also can be a student senator now. But we are keeping the requirement about graduating in spring because it's kind of unfair for someone to run for Senate and then immediately graduate like 3 weeks in, really just voting for like speaker election, speaker pro tem, like all the leadership stuff, but then not actually contributing for the year. So we're keeping the spring and summer graduation requirement, but removing the fall graduation requirement as well. And I would definitely recommend everyone vote yes on this because this is a constitutional amendment. So it requires, I forget the threshold, 3/4 threshold to pass. So definitely everyone vote yes, because it's a pretty minor margin and this won't pass. So I'd strongly encourage yes. So with that, I will take any questions that anyone has for me.
Are there any questions for Speaker Bothwell? Okay. Oh, Chair Brown.
Hello, I was wondering so whenever we're deciding committees, if there was a student that, for example, was graduating at semester, would it be like fair to not choose that member because they were graduating and you'd have to fill that position? Or would that be like improper because they still would be a student senator?
Yeah, that's kind of a logistical question, but I guess in my opinion, we fill vacancies for people all the time during the year, including like not at semester. I mean, like there were people picked for committees who dropped then like the first or second week and still, I mean, yeah, Madison, I think you and I, we had to put like a couple people on your committee back in like September as well to fill spots. So honestly, I'm not that concerned about it. If anything, I think that we can plan for it and like know that that's happening if someone lets us know about that. So I actually think wouldn't be that big a deal and happens in the status quo already because this isn't a super enforceable rule. And so there have been people in the past few years who've done this already. So it's already been an obstacle to overcome. And I think it's an easier barrier to overcome than someone just dropping regardless, just because they don't want to be in the Senate anymore. So that's not a concern that weighs too heavily on me, at least.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Speaker Bothwell? Yeah, Chair Boos. Okay,
Yeah.
let me pass the mic to you.
Yeah, I wanted to elaborate on why the UGB thing is in there, because we actually do in our election statutes have a little bit of like extra information about UGB, because like UGB is run through UGB and Collegiate Media Group Advisory Board, and you know those two things are run through our election system. And so like technically this is us changing UGB's requirements, which is kind of weird, and it would be nice if we would disentangle this at some point, but that's what it is.
Is that something you think that shouldn't be included? Because I would consider that a friendly amendment, getting rid of that striking, if you feel like this is unnecessary or overbearing. But
I did not receive an email back from Nathan Vance when I reached out to him, considering UGB's requirements. So I'm not going to make that motion at this time. If anyone else wants to, they can.
Okay. I was just curious.
Cool. Any further questions for Speaker Bothwell? Okay. Do you want me to take the rest of this motion?
No, I can do it. I don't mind. Next up, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 43? If you have debate in the negative, please indicate so now at this time. Is there any additional debate in the positive on Bill 43? Is there any additional debate at all on Bill 43? Seeing none, I will turn this over to Maggie for a roll call vote. And yeah, so reminder, since this is a constitutional amendment, it requires a 3/4 majority to pass, and that's of all senators who've been sworn in. So if you're a proxy tonight, please make sure to proxy vote because that will be critical. Maggie, do you have that? Does it calculate that number for you that we need? Okay, we'll double check the spreadsheet later, but I think we need at least 41 votes then in the positive for this to pass. So if I got 40 yes votes, it would still fail. So Maggie, go.
Remember your options are yes, no, pass, and abstain. Atchison. Bain. Bellamy.
Yes.
Boos. Brown,
Pass.
Bruce, Brummett, Burke,
Yes.
Carlson. Thank you. Carr,
Yes, by proxy.
awesome. Clements,
Yes.
Cone, Colburn, Crosslow, Diaz de Leon, Dillevue,
Yes.
Doc, Dunlap,
Yes.
Frederick, Glasscock. Oh, thank you, Senator Frederick. Glasscock, yes. Grills,
No, and I forgot to say no by proxy for Josh.
okay. Gromez, Hamlin,
Yes.
Harmon, Hurd,
Yes.
Heimerman, Hernandez,
Yes.
Hutchings, Jambunathan, James Rose,
No.
Kidd,
Yes.
Koch, Cruson,
Yes.
Levi, Manners, McKee, Muthukumar,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Nunink,
Abstain.
Panikatu. Thank you. Phillips, Porter, Purdy. Thank you. Richenberg, Rodriguez,
Yes.
Rossi.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, Senator Rossi, what was your vote?
Abstain.
Awesome, thank you. Salmon, Shear, Shunjay. Thank you. Snyder Ben,
Yes.
Snyder Blaine,
Yes.
Bonts, Fulgamore, Wallace,
Pass.
Ward. Thank you. Wells,
Pass.
Willis Jackson,
Yes.
Willis Reese, and Windholtz.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go back through the passes, but before I do that, is there anyone whose name I did not call? Okay, Brown.
Can I have a vote total, please?
Oh, yes. As of right now, it is 40 to 3 to 2.
Yes.
Okay. Frederick, thank you. Harmon, Koch, Wallace,
No.
and Wells.
Yes.
Okay. We are at 40 to 6 to 3 with 51 total votes. Yeah, we need to look at this real quick. This is my fault. I don't know if my spreadsheet is completely up to date, so I'm going to take this one. It doesn't matter anyway.
Okay, so there were 42 votes in favor, but the spreadsheet wasn't updated. So yeah, we needed 45 for it to pass. So it technically fails right now, but we also have a question in the chat about changing a vote. And then, yeah, I'm seeing more questions come in. So, okay, so Chair Brown is interested in making the motion to reconsider. So a motion to reconsider means that we would essentially bring it back again, like we would be able to do new debate, new vote, like everything. But the only people who can make that motion are people who voted no. It's the winning side of a motion. So yes, we can do that, but only if, so yeah, so Chair Brown, you voted yes, so you can't make that motion now. Only someone who voted no could, but like if, yeah, that's correct there. And then I got a question about changing a vote. I don't know how, I don't think it's ever happened as far as I'm familiar with. Max, I might need to consult you on that.
No, I don't think you can change a vote, but if I could have the floor for something else. Given that like there's no debate in the negative, I feel so moved to move to reconsider.
Oh, yeah, and I think anyone can second it. Okay, hold on. So we're getting caught up. Parliamentary inquiry from intern Blood has been withdrawn. So let me go back to my chair and we'll start this thing over again. With that, since the motion to reconsider was made, Max, you get the floor for that. I think that is debatable. So you have the right to debate on that.
Yeah, especially with it being a constitutional amendment and it failing by such.
Oh, see, I don't have.
Yeah, I wondered. I didn't have time to look it up.
Wait,
Yeah,
hold on. Sorry, I'm getting this. I'm learning a lot about parliamentary procedure very quickly right now. Debate only applies to debatable motions. So yes, it is debatable because it's the main motion, the motion to, like we were considering the bill in the first place. So yes, it is debatable right now. So Max, yes, you do have the floor. You can debate because we are on a main motion before this. So yeah, so the motion to reconsider is only debatable if the motion you're reconsidering is debatable. So we were debating a bill, which is a main motion, right? We went through debate. I said positive, negative, positive, negative. So that was debatable. So Max can debate now.
Yep.
Am I all caught up on questions? Okay, want to make sure. So yes, Max, you have first right to debate on the motion to reconsider and look at this again.
Thanks. Given that it's a constitutional amendment and there really wasn't, we didn't have really much chance to debate. Yeah, I think this is important. It failed by such a slim margin. If we're going to fail it, I think the body wants to and has the right to have that debate and to have that explanation. So that's why I'm moving to reconsider it. It was a fascinating exercise going through that vote, and even more fascinating that we're reconsidering it. But I would, in the interest of like having the best like reasons for passing our legislation and the best like deliberative theory, I would encourage you all to reconsider this and open it back up for debate.
Are there any questions for Senator Harmon at this time? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on the motion to reconsider the bill? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the positive on the motion to reconsider the bill? Director Koger, Director Koger asked, could we hold this bill until next week and hope for higher attendance? The answer to that question would be someone could make a motion to table this or to postpone this to next week, excuse me, to postpone this bill to next week, but the motion to reconsider would have to pass first. So we first need to work through this, and then I would entertain any motions on the main bill there. So I was in the middle of seeking debate in the positive on the motion to reconsider. Is there any additional debate at all on the motion to reconsider? I don't know, I need to check the sheet. Can someone who has the little parliamentary cheat sheet tell me if this takes a majority or 2/3? What is it? Just a majority? Okay. So with that, we will now proceed into a hand vote on this. So I guess just to explain what you're voting on right now, you will raise your hand if you, so as of right now, Bill 43 is dead. Like it failed. You will raise your hand to reconsider this, to bring it back before the body. And we can do any addition, we could amend it, we could debate it some more, we could postpone it, we could do anything. We can't do anything to it now, but if this motion to reconsider passes, we could do additional stuff to it. If this motion fails, it's dead forever. So with that, I'm now seeking people to raise their hand who are in favor of reconsidering Bill 43. So please raise your hand at this time. Not actually in person. You have to do it on the Zoom call so I can get a tabulation. Thank you to all of those who are excited about this.
And those of you with a proxy, if you want to DM your vote to
Yeah.
Speaker Bothwell, that would be cool
Yes,
as well.
please DM me if you are a proxy for someone.
Again, I just want to apologize for the whole spreadsheet situation. I honestly don't know what happened, but anyway.
Okay, so all those in favor, I haven't seen it change for a bit, so I have 35 hand. Oh, no, it went up again. I'm waiting for all those in favor to raise their hand. As of right now, I have 36 hands in favor and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by proxy. So I have 41 votes in favor of reconsidering. So I'm going to lower all hands now. If you are against reconsidering, please raise your hand right now as well if you would like to not reconsider this. Okay, I have 4 hands raised right now and then 1 DM. of no. So with that, by a vote of 41-5, this motion will be reconsidered. So now it's basically now it's like nothing we did happened. So we didn't debate it, we didn't vote on it. It's before us entirely again, like it's from scratch. I guess I have first right to debate again, because I'm the author. So unless anyone has a motion, I'll debate again. But if you have if you have a motion, you have to make it over Zoom. I'm not calling on people in person, so everyone do it. It's been moved by Caucus Leader Kidd to postpone this bill until next week. Is this a unanimous consent one? We would vote on this. So Blake, we would vote on this, so your objection doesn't matter. And yeah, and this is debatable. Sorry. Not to say what you're doing doesn't matter, but your motion's out of order. That's what it is. So sorry. So it's been moved by Caucus Leader Kidd, and it was seconded by Grills to postpone until next week. This is a debatable motion. So Caucus Leader Kidd, you get the floor first on why you think this should be postponed to next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Speaker Bothwell. As it shared by previous speakers, this original bill by a very slim margin. I personally would like to hold this until next week so that we can have more people in the, and then also hopefully that if this does pass and we can hold this until next week, I would love to just learn more from the voters that wanted this to fail, just one more perspective, and just help me in, because I thought this was very straightforward and there wasn't a lot of debate in the beginning. So I was just confused the number of no votes that we did get towards this. So I would again hope that everyone would vote with me to hold this until next week. Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Senator Kidd, or Caucus Leader Kidd, excuse me? Yep, I can answer. Yeah, that. What can I answer for you, Lily? Oh, that'd be a... There were 3 abstentions. Sorry, I see another question in the chat. So before I proceed on with debate, question, if this is held, is it sent back to committee? No, if we wanted to send it back to committee, we would make a motion to send it back to committee. So right now, this would just stay with Senate. If we wouldn't do anything, it would just show up on the agenda again next week. So I hope that answers your question, Madison. Caucus Leader Phillips has withdrawn his question. So I just want to make sure everything's fine. Caucus Leader Phillips has debate in the negative right now. So Caucus Leader Phillips, you have the floor if you want to go up to the podium.
All right. Thank you. So yeah, as far as postponing this bill until next week, tonight we have already had 6 people who are in Senate right now tell us that they are not in favor of this bill. And so I would really encourage, before we move to postpone this, that those 6 people get up and debate and tell us why they voted no, because there was no explanation about this beforehand whatsoever. And so I would just encourage that dialogue and conversation to be had tonight, as we all have our feelings right now about how we feel about this bill in particular. Next week, as far as attendance goes, there's no guarantee that it's going to go up or down. We have a quorum right now. We are perfectly capable of voting on this bill tonight. As far as I've heard some chatter just about referring to committee as well. Nothing in my mind is going to change if this were to go to committee. This has already been to the Senate Operations Committee. The Senate Operations Committee gave us what their thoughts were on that. And so I personally don't think that anything would change as far as committee goes. This just needs to be voted upon by Senate, which we have done so already. But I would really encourage those 6 that voted no to kind of come up and explain why, because there was really no explanation on that. And so that's why I why I would suggest not postponing that. Ultimately, if we have some discussion and we feel like it needs to be postponed later, that's perfectly fine. But we have 6 people right now who have expressed their opinions, and I would personally like to hear those now rather than informally over the next week. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions for Cox Theater Phillips about his debate? Seeing none. Is there any additional debate in the positive on the motion to postpone to next week? Seeing none, Senator Harmon, you have the floor for additional debate in the negative on the postponement.
Something to just briefly add on top of previous speaker. The motion to reconsider was definitely not made with the intention of allowing the body to postpone this in order to have a more favorable voting condition next week. In my mind, definitely echoing previous speaker's thoughts, I think the intention of my motion to reconsider was to have this debate this week. And I think we are fully able to have this. One other thought to consider: next week is the last meeting of our term. And looking at the docket, we're already going to have some spicy legislation, and not to mention building that on top of hosting the SGA banquet during first opening period. I really see it as not only being unbeneficial for us to postpone this and kick the can down the road, which will result in us having an even later Senate next week. I think it will do this bill disservice because we could potentially just be even more tired and not wanting to have this debate next week. I think now is the time to have it, and I would urge you all. I don't think postponing this a week does anything for the benefit of this bill or the debate, and I urge you all to let us have that debate tonight.
Are there any questions for Senator Harmon? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the positive on the motion to postpone? Seeing none, Chair Booz, you next have the floor for debate in the negative on the motion to postpone.
Yeah, thanks to previous speakers for talking about why, most of why I'm also voting to reconsider this. I do think today is probably the best time to discuss this, and it's already been discussed in committee. If debate starts to stagnate and we're repeating the same points back and forth, then I wouldn't necessarily be completely against referring it to a committee, but I do think it's time to discuss it now. So I'm definitely in favor of reconsidering.
Is there any questions for Chair Booz? Are there any questions for Chair Booz? Seeing none, I believe I've exhausted all debate that's currently in the chat. Is there any additional debate in the positive on this motion to postpone? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the negative on this motion to postpone? Seeing none, is there any additional debate at all on the motion to postpone? Seeing none, we will now vote on the motion to postpone. So right now, let me pull up the participants window. You will vote in favor of this motion if you would like this bill to be discussed at next week's Student Senate meeting. You would vote against this motion if you would not like to discuss it in next week's Senate meeting, and instead we would continue to debate and do whatever else we want to do to it tonight. So all who are in favor of postponing this motion, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature at this time. Again, if you're a proxy, DM me. But if you are in favor of the postponement to next week, please raise your hand.
It's just a majority, by the way.
I haven't seen it change for a bit, so I only have 10 votes in the positive for this. Let me clear the feedback. All opposed to the motion to postpone, please raise your hand now. I have 32 votes in the chat, and then I got 2 no's by proxy. Oh, the transcription came on. Don't know what I did, but it came. I guess it's working now. So with that, yep, I have 32. So it'll be 34 votes no, and then I received an additional yes for a proxy. So by a margin of 11 to 34, the motion to postpone fails. So this is back in front of the whole body. So let me clear all feedback now. So this is back in front of the whole body. It's time for debate again. I guess I, as speaker, have first right to debate on this, and I didn't take that last time since there was a motion, but I'm going to do that now again. Yeah, I was not expecting this to be controversial, to be honest. Nobody told me anything. So I'm a little shocked that we've spent half an hour on this so far. My intentions with writing this, like I said, were really to, again, make SGA more accessible and more open, and basically to, also to amend our governing documents to include our current practices already. Basically everything included in this is stuff that we do in the status quo. Like we held a hearing and allowed someone with less than 12 credit hours to be a senator this year. We have had people in the past who graduate at fall, they just don't tell us and we can't enforce it. So they just fill out the resignation after the last Senate meeting in December, or in like November, December, and then we replace them through our usual processes anyway. So in my mind, I think that this should not be controversial, and I'm shocked at all the no votes that are coming through, because nothing that's happening right now is not something that we don't do already, and we don't have processes to fix. So by voting yes on this bill, you're just voting to make our processes explicitly more equitable and more open to people, and you're also voting to, again, like make what we do in reality just like a standard practice that we accept. So I guess if there's portions that people don't like, I'd be open to amendments. But in all honesty, I would highly recommend a yes vote again on this still, because in my mind, there's nothing included in this bill that is not going on already. I don't think you would notice a substantial difference in the function, operations, or change to SGA. But I love the idea of like someone who's like a part-time student in 3 credit hours now being able to be a full member of our body and a student senator and join us. I think that's really awesome and something we should do. So with that, I will now sit down and take any questions. Maggie, if you want to facilitate that.
Yep. Are there any questions for Speaker Bothwell? Caucus Leader Kidd, I see you have a question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So for right now, I get this bill in reference to like people that file and run and with elections and everything. But for people that become senators through like alternative means, either through like college councils or whatever, are their credit hours being validated as well to make sure that they're at least full time, or no?
Yes. Yeah. So we have our advisor, Kelly Ferris, who we do like grade check and credit hour check with new senators as we get them to verify eligibility.
I have a follow-up as well.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay, so then bonus question. So for students, not hypothetical. What happens if mid-semester a student that was at full-time status, what happens if they, dang it, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, so are you asking what happens if people fall below that credit hour threshold like partway through the semester?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so that actually, it didn't happen exactly the way you're asking, but it did happen within this term. I obviously am not going to reveal names for like student privacy reasons, but we had someone who was elected in the initial slate last spring, who was an enrolled student at the time they were elected, but they actually dropped all their classes. That would have been spring of 2020. They dropped all of their credit hours, And so because they dropped all their credit hours and were no longer a K-State student, I actually did have to ask them to resign because they were no longer a K-State student, so they couldn't be a senator. So this bill really wouldn't change that situation because we're still making the threshold 1 credit hour. So it wouldn't have helped that student. But if this bill were to pass and if someone were to fall below like full-time status as 9 credit hours, they could still continue being a student senator, even if that might impact other parts of their university experience. Does that answer your question, Marcus?
It does, but it makes me think of another follow-up. Can I ask that follow-up too?
Yeah, go for it. I'm happy to keep chatting.
Okay, so then how did you know that that happened? Were you just checking?
Yeah, so that was through that was through that advisor check. Like I said, we did like a big check on like everyone, like right after the new slate was elected for GPA and credit hour eligibility.
Okay, I have another question, but I'll wait till later. So sorry. Thank you.
No, you're good. Thank you for your questions, Marcus.
I'm seeing another question from Senator Grills.
Yeah, you mentioned that right now this really wouldn't be changing the status quo because we've already got, we already have students, part-time students in these positions as senators. Can you talk about that just a little bit more?
Yeah, so as of right now here, wait, I can tell you the line number to look at on the bill if I can find my own copy. So yeah, it's if you go to line 55 and 56 on the bill, it specifically says that, so we have this credit hour requirement, and it says exceptions to this can be granted by the Senate Operations Standing Committee. So we actually had an individual, again, I'm not going to name names during this conversation, but there was an individual this past fall who was like notified of filling a vacancy, but they were not fully enrolled in 12 credit hours. So the Senate Operations Committee actually held a hearing. So I attended that. Chair Booz chaired that meeting, and the members of his committee were all present, and we discussed that about whether or not we would extend the seat offer to that student. I don't know if anyone from that committee wants to chime in, but when I was present for that, the general vibe of that conversation is we could not come up with a reason why denying someone a seat for 9 credit hours would be beneficial. Like, why might someone take 9 credit hours? It might be a cost thing. It might be a time thing. It might be like a learning disability. There could be a number of reasons why someone was, I mean, we brainstormed when we were in that meeting what the reasons could be, and we couldn't come up with any possible reason why someone who wasn't in 12 credit hours, but was still willing to serve in student government and serve their fellow students and be involved, why that would disqualify them from involvement. So I don't know if anyone from Senate Ops wants to chime in and feel like if I'm doing that meeting justice, but Billy, is that your hand raised? Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna defer to Senator Kraslow to just elaborate more on that hearing process.
During that meeting, we talked about all the permutations of credit hours, both for undergraduates and graduate students. And I made some points about graduate enrollment. Right now, I am doing research hours. Those are entirely fungible. I could do 10 hours like I'm doing this semester, or I can do 1 hour and maintain my student status. So what would prevent me from being a student senator? What threshold is required to make Billy Kraslow not involved enough? And that was the question I'd posed. And Nate's like, you got a point, big man. That is something that's hard to identify. And I'm paraphrasing for you, Nate. Okay. But let me pose some other situations for people. The Global Campus offers a certificate program in adult education for graduate students. They run on an 8-week schedule. So I could, as a graduate student in theory, sign up for 3 hours of full semester credit and 3 hours of the first 8 weeks. So halfway through that semester, I would then be ineligible to serve as a senator as the bylaws read now. The only change in my status was I took a class that was only 8 weeks long. Does that fundamentally deprive me of my right to be a senator or to be a student rep in the SGA? So that's how we kind of classified it during our Senate Ops meetings.
Yes, thank you, Billy, for that. Ashley, did that answer your question and kind of give the backstory that you needed?
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely answered a lot of things for me. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I believe I'm all caught up on questions in the chat.
Just to double check, Caucus Leader Kid, are you good?
Yes, I would like to withdraw my most recent request for a question.
Yeah, no problem. Are there any further questions for Speaker Bothwell? Chair Brown.
You mentioned that OPS has the opportunity to hold like a trial and kind of override this in terms of credit hours. Can they also do the same for students who are graduating at semester?
No, so that one is not explicitly included already. I can elaborate more on why I struck that in this bill. That was specifically because there are, again, I'm not going to name any names. I have known senators in the past who didn't run for a spot in SGA knowing that they would graduate in December, even though like they'd been involved for years. They just felt like since it was the rules, they shouldn't stick around. Vice versa, I knew other people who had the same opposite opinion.
Sorry, time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Glasscock, I see a motion to extend by 5 minutes, seconded by Chair Booz. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, go ahead, 5 more minutes.
Yeah, so Madison, to get back to where I was, so I know some people who will deliberately not run for Senate to follow this rule, which I think is really a shame for people to miss out on being in SGA for their final semester just because, again, their degree plan or degree path might lead to them not being here. And vice versa, I have known people who have deliberately not told the speaker and speaker pro tempore of the student senate that their intention, I was speaker pro tem last year, so who have not told people that their intention was to graduate at semester, so then they could stay in for that semester, and then they just vacated their seat at that time, and we filled it through the normal procedures. I am not frustrated by the idea of filling a vacant seat because we have a litany of ways to fill seats. I mean, I don't know how many people in this room or on this call filled a vacant seat, but I know it's at least 5 like interns who are filling seats that people were vacated by, and probably a great deal of other senators as well who are filling vacated seats. And I don't think that like stepping in partway through the year or leaving partway through the year deters or determines someone's like ability to be a good or excellent student senator. So that part doesn't frustrate me. And again, I wanted to strike it because it's already kind of happening and like serving as a barrier also to involvement right now in the status quo. So I hope that answers your question, Madison.
All right, next in the chat, I'm seeing a question from Senator Frederick.
Hi there. So thanks. I just had a quick question, and hopefully this comes across right. So I know with like student employment and whatnot, there's 6 hours required for a student to be employed, et cetera, for like a GTA or kind of position. And I work with a lot of non-trad students who aren't full-time. So kind of like that. But do you think that would have, I guess, would you be open to the thought of an adjustment of hours if you think that might be something to assist with this or not?
So actually, no, I would not be open to that. The reason that I want it to be 1 credit hour is because we charge students the privilege fee at 1 credit hour. It's a prorated rate and you pay the full privilege fee at 6 hours. And since that's one of the student government's primary responsibilities, as we all know, because we've dealt with so much of it this year, I think it's essentially, I put it in the bill, it's taxation without representation if you are in 3 credit hours and not like able to vote or amend or change the privilege fee that you're being charged. So I actually am opposed to that, Senator Frederick. I think that 1 credit hour is the way I want it. Oh, and there's a follow-up. Yeah, I'll take it.
So how would that differ? How does that apply for global students who don't pay that privilege fee at all? Does that factor in at all? Just a question.
So as of right now, I actually think that we've never had a global campus student in Student Senate. And I know that that was like what Billy proposed earlier, and actually Senate Ops, I know Billy in particular has discussed opening up spots for that. But technically, I think as of right now, a global campus student can't be a student senator. So I think that what you proposed is like kind of irrelevant or like unnecessary to the discussion we're having because it doesn't impact those students. So. It looks like Billy has more to add. Do you have? Oh, so it looks like yeah, a goal is next year to have a global campus student on the student body president's cabinet as representation there. But that doesn't change Senate whatsoever. So I hope that answered.
Okay. Up next, I'm seeing a question from, is it intern blood?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if that wording really, okay, so sorry, people said that the question couldn't be heard. Sorry about that. The question was, line 54 says that at least 1 credit hour during the fall and spring semesters to be eligible in office. Would it be a friendly amendment to change that to during the term to be eligible to remain in office? And I'm actually going to go with no, I would not consider that friendly because the amendment that Senate Operations made when it was in committee last week was that you still have to be a senator for this spring section, so literally on April 8th when the group is here, and then the coming fall. So I think that the current wording works fine with the intentions. It matches the line that Senate Operations had, and so I think it all matches up. So I appreciate your amendment, but I don't think it's necessary. So, oh God, people just want to ask me questions tonight.
Is there a second for the motion in the chat? All right, thank you, Caucus Leader Phillips. Are there any objections to the extension of 10 minutes? Okay, seeing none, did you need to wrap up your final thought?
No, I answered that
one. I think the next question goes to Chair Colburn. We're gonna get you a mic. Sorry, thanks. Sorry, Max. Props to Max for all of his help tonight. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You kind of mentioned it earlier, but is there a way that we check to see if students are on track to graduate by December currently, or is that just something that we don't pay attention to at all?
From my conversations when I was Speaker Pro Tem with Hannah last year, the only way we could enforce that semesterly thing is, I guess theoretically we could check to see if someone's applied for graduation. We don't do that currently. That would be like the only trigger that would cause us, and I guess we'd have to ask someone to resign in the status quo right now. But we don't currently check for that, and we had people deny that they were going to apply for graduation when we asked about it last year. I'm not going to say much more than that, but.
And follow up, that would still happen during the fall semester, correct? They would still take their seat, and in the fall semester, we could theoretically see if they applied for graduation?
Yes, okay. Yeah, because you don't have to apply for graduation until a few weeks into the semester. Like the deadline's about a month in, so.
Thanks.
Okay, in the chat next, I'm seeing Caucus Leader Kidd.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So my question kind of relates to Senator Frederick's question about global campus students. Can global campus students vote in the elections?
No. So senator elections can only be voted on by Manhattan campus students in that college. Student body president elections, though, can be voted on by all Manhattan campus students and all Polytechnic students, the way we have it now. But no.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Okay, Glasscock, I believe, is next. I'll just here.
Okay, yeah. My question was really quick, kind of going off of what intern Blood was speaking about. So as I understand it, the intention is to allow senators who are graduating in the fall to serve as student senators for that term. Back to line 54, I mentioned serving at least 1 credit hour during the fall and spring. My question is that the fall and then the following spring, or the fall and the spring before that? And do we check for credit hours all 3 semesters that you're a student senator, or how does that work?
Advisor Ferris illustrated this in the chat earlier, but we do a grade check at the beginning and end of every semester. And so just to check for eligibility, on both grades and credit hour requirements, which is how like some of the instances that I've mentioned have like come up so far in the past. As for, to be honest, that line did not stand out to me as I was writing this bill. So what was proposed by intern Blood was new to me about changing that. it's kind of vague and weirdly worded right now. I'm not going to deny, but I don't think it needs to be changed unless it was made incredibly more explicit. I didn't want to make it vaguer by just term. So I know it's not the most helpful, but I also don't think it's like hurtful right now either.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm not currently seeing any more questions in the chat, but let me take a peek here. Are there any more questions for Speaker Bothwell? Okay, I think we're all caught up.
Okay, so that was all of my debate in the positive finally worked through. So with that, we are now moving into debate in the negative. So if there's, this is just on the main bill. Senator Grills, you have the floor for debate in the negative.
Hey guys, sorry I did not speak earlier. I guess we really could have saved a lot of time. But I was just looking at this bill and I felt like it was a lot more controversial and we didn't talk about it enough. I think there's a reason that our current statutes exist that require a student to be in 12 credit hours to serve as student senator. Part-time students are historically less involved on campus and they do not understand all of the concerns of full-time students at K-State. I feel like we're passing this legislation to cover rare circumstances, and I don't think we should advertise this opportunity and make this a more frequent occurrence. I don't have a problem with Senate ops taking on special circumstances. However, I feel like it should be just that, special circumstances. I don't think we should normalize or encourage seniors graduating in December to run for a Senate term that they will not fully be present for. The seat should be prioritized and given to an individual that will be a part of that conversation year round. I don't feel like a student who is in one credit hour should hold the power to make ambitious decisions for the entire student body alongside all of us full-time students serving as senators. So this piece of legislation really does not sit well with me. I don't think it's the best thing for students. And I think a lot of really great points were brought up about, really serving those students with maybe learning disabilities or other special cases like that. So I think what Senate Ops already has in place is really important. And I also understand seniors are already taking these positions that are graduating early. But I don't think we should be encouraging this, and I don't think we should make legislation to make this easier so that Senate Ops doesn't have to review all these circumstances. So that's why I'm voting no on this legislation. And I just think there's a reason why we have this in place. Oh my God, I just coughed right there. There's a reason why we have this in place. So that's where I'm at, and I'm open to questions.
Awesome. We're going to move into questions. I would like to give a general reminder on questions. Please try to keep questions not debate-like in nature. Instead, ask like exploratory or informative questions. And the person taking questions, as a reminder, always has the right to refuse to answer them if they don't want to. If you have debate, make it in the form of debate. Don't do it through questions. We're not a courtroom. So just a reminder, because I have a feeling there might be a lot of stuff that comes up. So with that, Caucus Leader Kidd, you have the next question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So my question is, what language in this bill suggests that this would be encouraged for senators to try and do?
Are you talking about like for those seniors or?
For,
a little more direct.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So just hearing what you had to say about it in general. So for students in general that aren't graduating, for students that may be graduating, where in this bill do you see that it suggests that it would encourage students to actually do that with their credit hours and whatnot?
Yeah, I think this just allows it based on everything that Nate said. I didn't really pinpoint an exact spot in the legislation. Just based on what Nate was talking about, we wouldn't make this like a special circumstance that would run through ops and we replace them that way. I feel like this just normalizes people taking those seats rather than steering some people away and letting people who will be here for the whole term have that opportunity. I wish I had a better pinpoint for a line. This is just really based on the previous speaker's debate.
Awesome. Next question I have is from Chair Colburn. Okay, it was answered already. So the question has been withdrawn. There's a question from Chair Booz. We're running mics around the room. Hold on a sec.
Thanks, Senator Grills, for your debate and getting this out there. Would you be in support of an amendment that would limit this to 6 credit hours and above?
I don't know. I feel like we're really getting into the nits and grits with that. That would definitely be something I'd have to look more into. Makes me want to negotiate it up to 9, but I don't know. Like, I feel like we need to look more into the reason why this piece of legislation was established at 12 credit hours and, what historical, empirical evidence that we have that shows a full-time 12 credit hour student has better representation and involvement of what our students here at K-State need and are interested in and how we can best serve them. I feel like a student who is doing those 12 credit hours is full-time, understands the needs of K-State students. I would hate for someone in 6 credit hours, only 2 classes, to be serving on the privilege fee committee and making large decisions with the committee for allocating $16.4 million. I feel like that just doesn't sit well with me. And I feel like I would rather someone who's involved and really has their hands in campus, and 12 credit hours just really shows that to me on a different level.
Okay, thank you.
There's like a request. Is that for me right now? Okay, so sorry. Intern Blood has a question for me.
Because of the what Senator Frederick brought up about student employees being required to be in at least 6 credit hours, would this bill have limitations on people who could run for or be elected to, say, Speaker of the Student Senate, which is a paid position from the university as well?
That is an excellent question that I don't have an answer to. I don't think so though, because I mean, all like the compensation for stuff. So first of all, the scholarships are paid as a percentage of credit hours up to 14 hours. So like when I received a scholarship in compensation, I was only in 12 credit hours when I got it. So I didn't get 14 hours worth of, I only got 12 hours worth. So I don't think it would alter compensation in the form of scholarships that we give. And then I'm trying to think, in terms of pay, biweekly pay, I don't see this being a change, because again, it's like it's through K-State's HR system. And I mean, it's the same, like I get my biweekly compensation through the way, like by recording hours, which like anyone could do regardless of whether they're a student or not. So I don't think it would alter compensation. I don't think so. Senator Kraslow looks like could mention it. So I get both. That's the thing. So there's 4 positions: student body president, vice president, speaker, and attorney general, that get both, and then all other positions are just scholarships. So yeah, I don't know if that would change, but I don't think it would impact this bill would have an impact on those. Okay. That was something I didn't think about, but I think the other thing is that this does only, the other thing though is that this, no, I don't have any other follow-up. That's it. That's all I've got. Thanks for your question. And there's also a point of inquiry from Chair Colburn.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'll change my name. Sorry, I know that there's a different requirement for the student body president for credit hours. This does not change that, correct?
Correct.
Do you know, is that 9?
It's 7 for student body president. So it's very odd. It's an odd number. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, student body president only has to be in 7 hours. Senator Frederick mentioned that it would impact biweekly pay. I also, yeah, okay, time for questions has expired. And hold on, I'm just trying to get my head around something. I'm not certain that this would impact positions with pay though, because this statute is specifically about stuff that's in the election statutes. So speaker isn't included in the election statutes. It's not a position there. So I don't think it would alter that whatsoever. I actually don't even know if we have qualifications for speaker period anywhere, but yeah, based off my reading of this. That's actually, the pay thing is very interesting, but that doesn't impact the average student senator because senators don't get paid. So time has expired for questions for Senator Grills, but we're all caught up in the chat. So is there anything else on that?
Didn't Booze have a question?
Oh, wait, you asked your question. He asked his.
Oh, okay. I just want to be sure.
Okay,
Cool.
Seeing no more questions, next up is positive debate. Senator Croslow, you have the floor next for debate in the positive.
Yeah, I'd like everyone to really consider voting yes on this for one reason, and that is the SGA Senate speaks for all students, not just those who are full-time. So when we issue a resolution or a commendation, it is in the name of all students, not just those who simply can take a couple more credit hours than the other student. And I'd like you to think too that just because someone takes a few less hours doesn't mean they're less interested in having their voice heard. They need to have their voice heard. They need to be represented. And then on the last part, this is kind of on a tangent. I have been concerned about global campus representation for a while. I've brought it up before. We've looked at it in ops. We're looking at it in terms of the executive. We're going to get to that, previous speakers. But this bill addresses students who are here. And I please urge you to consider when we speak for those students, just because they're part-time doesn't mean they are any less than the rest of us on campus.
There's one question for you from Cox Theater Kid.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So Senator Croslow, do you know the numbers of students that are full-time versus students that are not full-time?
I cannot speak to those numbers across campus, and I really don't know them on the graduate consistency side. My constituents in the graduate caucus, we treat them all equally, and we don't differentiate by that. So really, I don't know those numbers because they haven't concerned me ever. I represent part-time grad students just as much as I represent full-time ones. Not trying to be argumentative there, Marcus, but I don't know, and that's why I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, sorry, I got to jump through to debate in the negative. Senator Harmon, I believe you have the next negative debate based off the order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to share my opinion, my thoughts and piece of debate on why I voted negative earlier. A couple, kind of like the three main points that I have is I take a little bit of issue with the taxation without representation argument. I think just like by them taking less credit hours may not make them less of a representative. I don't think that us taking full-time credit hours disallows us to be able to represent them. And we are a representation of them. This is kind of like a republic-based body. So they are able to vote. And that's my only like issue with the taxation without representation argument, is that we are here to represent them. I definitely don't think that falls flat. Another piece that I was trying to find a way to put into words, but I think that in my mind, it's really important to have people in this chamber who are, we've talked a lot about like the dedication issue, and I agree. I don't think that's an issue with people taking less credit hours, but I do think that it is a vast majority of the campus who is a full-time student, and that as like the student senate, most of the issues we're dealing with, like especially things like priv fee and a lot of things more or less apply mostly to full-time students. And in my mind, like having a student who is full-time, and especially somebody who is going to be here on campus and like attending student organizations and all of that, I think that gives them a broader base of experience to be able to represent students on campus. And so I almost disagree that it is a right to be a student senator. I think we are all here and it is a great privilege to be student senators. I think it is our responsibility to uphold high ideals and to be great representatives, and that we are here. We were elected on the premise that we were going to be great representatives. And so I kind of take issue with the idea, like I am all for making like lowering barriers to entry to this body. But I also think that like it is important to make sure that we are having the people here who are going to be representing the vast majority of the student experience. And so far, I'm still thinking that is that of a full-time student. And then my final point is that there are those exceptions where students may not be taking full-time credit hours, but they are charged the full privilege fee, and they can be really involved on campus. Maybe they started out taking 12 credit hours and they dropped that one class because they were having a really tough time that semester. And so I'm all in favor of the way the statutes are currently written, giving us the power to grant those exceptions. I'm all for ops having the ability to make the exception instead of writing it in as the rule. And I'm all in favor of having it that way. I am swayed a little bit by that gap of having students who are charged the full priv fee. And based on all of these example, like things that we've heard tonight, I think the best compromise is a 6 credit hour amendment to this bill. And instead of making it able to have senators who might be at a distance, not on campus, or only taking 1 credit or like 1 class, 3 credit hours, I think 6 credit hours being a half-time student makes up kind of like the middle of that difference for me. Sorry, this wasn't one of my best organized debates, but it's for all of those reasons that I would move to amend this legislation to strike the word 1 and replace it with 6. And I think that's the main edit that needs made.
Before you, hold on, I'm just trying to figure out what to do since I have so many pending debates on the current motion and then with yours.
The amendment takes precedence.
Yes, my only thing is, can we finish up questions right now and then move into debate? I like to do the amendment motion like when we're not in the middle of like debate. Like if we finish your questions and then I'll let your amendment go through. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So questions about your debate first and then.
Yes.
Okay.
My feelings about questions or debate are clear.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to scroll through the chat. So at this point in time, I'm trying to make sure I'm caught up on everything. Senator Croslow, you had a question for me. Oh, question for Max.
This is for you, Max. If part-time students can vote, should they be able to vote for someone who is just like them to serve in the Senate?
I think that's an excellent piece of debate, Senator Croslow.
Well done.
Keep an eye out for that bill later on in this agenda.
Next up in the chat, sorry, I'm trying to really keep track, guys. Cox Leader Kid, you have the next question.
Sorry, I was thinking I would like to withdraw my question, so sorry.
Okay, next up, Senator Salmon, I'm running over to you. I'm gonna get my step count in tonight.
Why do you think someone who is in 6 credit hours is more like qualified or involved than someone who is in 1 credit hour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Definitely, like, I don't really like in my mind, it's not about like the person who's at 6 versus the person who's at 1. In my mind, it's kind of about like how many classes they're taking. And to me, it's kind of like the 1 class student versus the student who was taking 12 credit hours and dropped down to 9 or was taking 9 in the first place. I think 6 is just kind of like the nice in between on that. And we kind of use 6 as that guideline for a lot of other things. To be a half-time student, I think the limit is 6. And so that's kind of how I arrived at that number. Even though I don't like thinking in terms of like the hardcore just numbers of it, I prefer to think of it in terms of like the number of classes a student might be taking.
Okay, so with that, we're all caught up on questions. Seeing no more. Okay, so at this point in time, where are we in par law? We're going into Max's amendment. If you're here for new senator training, we went over this. So Senator Harmon has made the motion. I gotta get my physical copy, hold on. Senator Harmon has made the motion where it's 1 to go to 6. Yeah, we can do that for sure. Oh, yeah. Well, no. So the original amendment, I guess, right? So Senator Harmon made a motion to change where it says every time it says 1 credit hour to 6 credit hours. That requires a second from anyone who would like to second that motion. Seconded by Chair Booz. Okay, multiple seconds. We're good. You have the floor on this. I'm going to get an amendment template made up so that way I can screen share that so people know what we're debating. But you can debate now.
Not too much to add. I kind of prefaced this with my debate on the last one. I'll take any more questions on this amendment.
Are there any questions for Senator Harmon about his amendment? Question from Caucus Leader Kidd.
Hi again, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I heard you right. So the amendment that you posed is to change 1 credit hour to 6 credit hours for undergrad. Did you mention anything specific about grad students hours?
So there is no distinction sorry, Max, for interrupting, but there's no distinction right now in this between undergraduate and grad hours. So yeah, that doesn't matter right now, Mark. Sorry, I keep really belittling people. There's like no reference to that right now in the original thing.
Oh, okay, perfect. Sorry, thank you. Appreciate it.
And then I see lots of stuff in the chat. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to keep up. Intern Blood has a point of inquiry. If you just want to say it, yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, or are you still of the opinion that 6 across the board? I just want to know what your amendment is.
I think, yeah, okay, so it'd be like, I could either be like, yeah, reducing both limits by 6 or just setting the undergrad at 6. Yeah.
Yeah, it was him. But
thank you, though. Always a good reminder. I think to be consistent with my prior reasoning, there could be an amendment later. I could be swayed. I'm going to leave it just at 6, like for the undergrad. And if you would have to interpret whether that changes, I guess, the grad student limit.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to be informed here. There's a question from Intern Blood. Again, we're running a mic up there. We need a full-time mic runner position.
In terms of your interpretation, the legislation you're amending would seem to say that it's that it would be 6 credit hours no matter the student because we eliminated any measurement. So I'm just wondering again if you would accept a change in that for grad students as well, or just amend it to say like undergrad or something along those lines.
There's a point of information from Chair Rodriguez. Yeah, Natalia, what could I answer for you?
I don't know if anybody has an answer for this, but do you have to be in a certain credit, like number of credit hours to be in grad school?
Natalia, from where we are in Wildcat Chamber, or not Wildcat, in the business building, your microphone was like incredibly muffled. We could not hear anything that you said.
Okay, I'm sorry. Those might have been my earphones. Does anybody know if to be in grad school you have to have a certain amount of credit hours?
What's the answer to that, Billy? Okay, so it's considered full-time at 6 hours for grad students. For GTAs, yeah. Okay. Okay, so less than 6 would be part-time for GTA positions. Awesome. Does that answer your question, Natalia? Okay, perfect. I believe I'm all caught up on questions on Max's amendment. Sorry, I'm really having to keep note of where we are. So now I'm seeking debate in the negative on this amendment. There are a lot of that poured in the chat already. And by my count, Lily, you had that first. So you get debate in the negative first.
Yeah, hi. So I know that this year has been an odd year for classes and Priv fee and everything, but like I don't pay the Priv fee this semester. I paid half of it last semester. I was only in 3 credit hours that were on campus. Do you think that I should resign as student senator because I didn't pay the Priv fee? This is a weird semester and I get that, but I think that gets at the heart of I'm an involved student. I'm the chair of a committee. I have an on-campus job. I do all of these things without paying the Priv fee, but I'm affected by the Priv fee and I'm affected by the decisions of this body immensely. I'm affected by the decisions that we made on Wellness Fridays or whatnot. I'm affected by the decisions that we make when we fund on-campus events and we fund the activities that I'm involved in. I'm affected in a lot of ways, one, beyond the Priv fee, and two, even with the Priv fee, I think it affects campus in a way that affects beyond the students who pay for it. So I think that paying the Priv fee, one, should not be a justification for like a barrier to keeping someone out of Senate. Also, someone at 1 credit hour pays a portion of the Priv fee. And if we're being honest, like let's think about it. People aren't in 1 credit hour really, they're in 3, which is paying half of the privilege fee for being on campus for 1 class. So in my mind, this argument between 6 and 1 is really small. It's just about paying the full Priv fee, which I would venture to guess just by the statistics, half of you at least aren't paying the full Priv fee this semester. I might be wrong about that. It's true for the College of Arts and Sciences, like half of our classes are online. There's no in-person option for the College of Arts and Sciences for half of the classes. So I would just urge you to consider if this piece of legislation would theoretically affect you, if it was at 6 credit hours, and if we were really using that logic to keep senators in or out of Senate. I have debate on the full bill, but I think that's what relates most to this amendment. So I'll end at that and leave myself open to questions.
Any questions for Chair Colburn? Seeing none, I would now seek debate in the positive on the amendment. There is none currently in the chat. Chair Booz.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to come up and say, explain why I seconded the amendment. And in my mind, there are 3 positions that we could land here that make sense, that are kind of fit a concept known as Schelling points, which are 1 credit hour, 6 credit hours, and 12 credit hours, with the caveat that graduate credit hours is kind of weird. At least, from a perspective of someone who's an undergraduate. And so, well, I wanted to have a discussion about having 6 credit hours because I think that's a pretty natural place to land. For the first reason that is where someone starts paying the entire privilege fee as opposed to paying only part of the privilege fee. And so in a sense, that would be the time where it makes sense for you to be able to get elected in addition to electing somebody else. I do want to discuss for a second taxation without representation. You get to vote as long as you're paying taking 1 credit hour, which means that you are represented no matter what happens tonight with this constitutional amendment. You just may not be represented with someone who's exactly like you, which may be an issue, but saying that you're not represented is not an issue. So that's one reason that it would make sense to go for 6, is that's where you're paying the full privilege fee. The other reason is if that makes it more likely that this bill will pass. And that may not be the case, but if 6 credit hours makes it more likely that we will loosen at all, then I think it's better to vote for 6 credit hours than to vote for 1 and have that fail. And so I thought it was better to discuss and propose and vote on having this amendment before we see whether the entire bill fails or not. So I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Chair Booz? Question from Senator Salmon.
Under this like 6 credit hour requirement, do you think there would still be those special cases where, say, somebody is enrolled in 3 credit hours? Would that still occur where you would allow them in?
I mean, so the special cases is in Senate operations?
Yes.
Yeah, that would actually be a very good thing to add to this amendment, and we could do that after this passes if we want to do that. But I would be willing to propose that.
Awesome. Any further questions? Seeing none, next debate in the negative by my count. Oh, good Lord. Sorry, I have to scroll back so far. Chair Rodriguez, Natalia, you have debate in the negative next.
Yeah, thank you guys. So I just feel really compelled as the chair to hop in here and let you guys know why I'm so against this amendment. I think it reduces everything back to accessibility and how we're supposed to be representing everybody on campus, and how we should let them be able to be part of SGA and Student Senate in any case. So like, if we want to be as diverse and inclusive as we have been trying to do, I think like 1 credit hour will be really beneficial. And like, let's be honest, how many people with 1 credit hour are actually going to run? It's just there in case that somebody that has been through anything that can only be enrolled in 1 credit hour but still wants to participate and be active in the school, in the university, and the changes that we're making, we should allow them to do so. And if they're only 1 credit hour, they might have more time to be involved than a lot of the people here right now. So who are we to deny them the opportunity to serve the university? So now it's time for any questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Rodriguez? Seeing none, there's no more debate in the positive. So unless there is any, I'll go back to negative. Seeing none, next debate in the negative by my count is Caucus Leader Phillips. You have the floor next.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the previous 2 negative speakers have hit on a little bit of what I was going to hit on. Something that I would definitely like to add to this conversation, though, is by proposing this amendment, I think most of this body has determined that part-time student representatives are okay as far as being in Student Senate and should be allowed to be in Student Senate. My main concern is how we differentiate those specifically part-time students. I feel like if we are going to allow part-time students in general, we should allow any part-time student. The difference between the 6 and the 1 is really if they're paying the full privilege fee or not, which is kind of what this argument has surrounded upon. I think with that, we're still having a group of students who aren't having or aren't able to have specific representation among people who are in similar situations as them. And I think that's something that is very valuable. Every student should at least have the opportunity to vote for, or at least to run for the position of someone in a similar situation to them, so that they can truly have representation. I think that this argument also isn't about whether we will have a student with 6 credit hours or 1 credit hour in this body. It's if the student body determines that they want that person in their position. And so I think that we should allow any student, no matter how many credit hours they are in, to be able to be represented in this body, and ultimately leave it up to the student body to decide that, rather than student senators not allowing Senate to be accessible to students. And so with that, I end my debate and accept any questions.
Any questions for Caucus Leader Phillips? Sorry, I'm trying to run through questions a bit faster now. So if you're going to have them, just make sure you type them in quick. But there are none at this point in time. Is there any additional debate in the positive? Seen none. Next debate in the negative that I have, Senator Richenberg, you have the floor next.
Hi guys. This bill has, has started great conversations and I think are really important, but I think the main thing to get out of this is equity. We passed a resolution about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like a week or two ago, holding the administration accountable for not being equitable, not being inclusive. So as student senators, we have to do the same for our association. And yes, 6 is almost getting there, but if we have the ability to take it down to 1 and include so many more students, then why shouldn't we? So that's why I am debating in the negative and feel like we should keep it at 1 credit hour.
Are there any questions for Senator Richenberg? Seen none. Any additional debate in the positive on the amendment? This is also the 5th round, so if you'd like to call previous question, one more positive and negative, then you can. Seen no more positive, we next have Caucus Leader Atchison. You are next for debate in the negative on the amendment.
Thank you. Yeah, what's up, everybody? So, should we assume that a student who is taking less than the proposed 6 hours and paying less to the school be considered someone who is less involved on campus? Do they not have the potential to be as passionate and as dedicated to serving their respected colleges and their entire university? And should we assume that they are simply not fit to represent? Non-traditional student populations, I can only assume, are higher than they have ever been, especially in these trying times. And who are we to say that they can't represent? Who are we to deny students their ability to be elected by their peers and to serve? And that's all I got to say about that.
Are there any questions for Caucus Leader Atchison? Seen none, I'll now seek additional debate in the positive. The motion to close the floor for debate is also now in order now, if you'd like to call the previous question. Senator Glasscock has moved to call the previous question. That would close debate. Is there a second on that? Seconded by Senator Kroslow. We will now proceed into a vote on that. Let me get my participants window up. Okay, so if you are in favor of closing debate on the amendment and just proceeding directly into the amendment, please, you would vote yes on this. If you would like to keep debating, you would vote no. This does take 2/3 of those voting. So with that, if you are in favor of closing debate, please raise your hand at this time. You can also DM me your vote if you're a proxy. Please remember, I'm seeing other reactions being used. Raising hand is the only one that counts. The others disappear after 10 seconds. With that, I have 41 votes in favor, including proxies. I had 37 hands and then 4 votes DM'd to me. All those opposed to closing the floor for debate? I see 1. With that, that's obviously 2/3. So debate will now be closed. So now all we're going to do is move into a hand vote on the amendment. This just requires a simple majority to pass. of those voting. So right now you would raise your hand if you are, you would vote yes if you want it to be 6 credit hours. You would vote no if you would want it to remain at 1 credit hour. So all those in favor of the proposed amendment by Senator Harmon, please raise your hand at this time if you are in favor of the amendment. Again, if you're a proxy, you can DM me. I count 9 votes in favor of the amendment, and I received no yeses by proxy. I'm clearing all feedback. So then all those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hand at this time. Again, DM me if you are a proxy. Oh, yeah, if you haven't changed your name for the meeting and you're a senator or caucus leader or chair who's also a senator, please make sure to do that. It's easier for us to verify voting. That's all. I have, by my count, I have 30 votes opposed with 4 by proxy. So that would be 34 against. So by my count, the proposed amendment fails. It was 31, excuse me. So that's 30 by a vote of 9 to 35, the proposed amendment fails at this point in time. So now, where are we, Parla? We are still in the middle of original debate on the bill. There was a significant amount of debate in the chat earlier, but to be honest, I will not know where it began and started. So I knew that there were people who indicated so earlier, but you're just gonna have to post it again if you want to debate now, because I won't know which ones we did and didn't do. Oh, you have it? I know Salmon was one of the earlier ones who was up next.
Sorry, Salmon was one above.
But one above everyone? Okay, so RJ, yep, you have the floor next. So this is on the main bill overall, by the way. Yeah, where we are. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So I have like 3 main points I would like to share, and then 1 response to like the taxation without representation argument. First of all, in response to some previous speakers, I don't think this bill encourages more people who would possibly be in 1 credit hour to run for student senate just on a whim. This is obviously a time commitment that takes at least 3 hours of our time, if not more usually, which will probably happen tonight. And someone who is taking almost 0 credit hours deciding to do that is almost 0. And in my opinion, it just normalizes current practices like Nathan has been saying over and over. It's this idea that if people in lower credit hours want to run, we already allow some people to do that. So why make it this one-off thing that causes more trouble and time for ourselves? Secondly, the assumption that low credit hour students aren't involved, in my opinion, is bad. Like previous speakers brought up, just assuming that people who are in lower credit hours is involved is a bad stance to take. And them running for student senate shows that they are involved or want to be involved. They wouldn't be putting the time and energy into running a student campaign like for student senate if they didn't truly care about being in student senate and giving their time and energy to learning about students. Therefore, I think we should throw that argument out the window. I think it's a bad framework to take. And kind of along those same lines, for my 3rd point, is I think the democratic process of being elected will solve for the problems everyone has been bringing up about the possibility of 1 credit hour students for some reason running. If 1 credit hour students, if that occurred, or even 3 credit hour or lower, decided to run, if they put in the time and energy that people who are enrolled in 12 credit hours did, they can get elected. That shows that they care enough about it, they put in the time and energy to do it, and therefore they deserve the position. People who don't do that won't get elected. And therefore, the problem solves itself through the democratic processes that are in place at the moment. On the taxation without representation argument, most people have been making the argument that like right now, students who are in lower credit hour classes are represented because we represent them. We are able to take their opinions and things of that sort. My argument to that is this is still taxation without representation because they don't have the chance to represent other students. Everyone should have the opportunity to hold an elected position, no matter if you are in 1 credit hour, which once again, ridiculously unlikely, or if you're in the 12 credit hours or more. And so saying that these people are represented, even though they don't have a chance to represent others, is a bad like framework on our part. And I think we should ignore that and still go along with the idea that Nathan brought up at the very beginning, that this is taxation without representation, and we should avoid that. I will take any questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Salmon? There's a question from Chair Booz and then Caucus Leader Kidd.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that debate. I did want to ask, like, do you think that the taxation without representation argument that you advanced would also apply to that United States Senate and House of Representatives?
What was the last part of that question? I'm sorry.
Do you think that the argument that you proposed on taxation without representation would also apply to the United States House of Representatives and United States Senate?
I mean, I can't answer that objectively, just because I don't know the inner workings of all of that. I mean, sure, but at the same time, we're not talking about that at the moment, and therefore I don't think it applies. If you want to have that conversation later, you obviously know a lot more about it than I do, so.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Caucus Leader Kidd, you have the next question.
I do, thank you so much. And this may need to be this may need to be deferred, but do you know what our current statutes and policies say regarding student senators and academic achievement at all? That's a poorly phrased question,
sorry, Marcus, I can jump in here. Are you asking about like GPA requirements?
Kind of, yeah, kind of no, but yes, for the most part, yeah.
I think you're kind of referring to like, do we know like how involved each senator is like based on their credit hours? Like kind of in reference to the argument I was making about how like low credit hours student senators aren't necessarily not involved.
I mean, I was kind of reaching there, kind of not. I was just asking the question of academics. Like, is there anything in the policies or statutes saying that a student senator has to have at least X GPA?
Yeah, I'll defer to Nathan.
Yeah, so I can take that. Undergraduate, you have to have a 2.0, which is the minimum above. That is the minimum you have to have above academic probation. If you are below 2.0, that would be considered academic probation. For graduate student senators, it is a 3.0 because that is the amount required to be in the graduate school. So for GPA requirements, it is the minimum GPA that you need to be a student at Kansas State University.
Okay, thank you.
With that, are there any further questions? Question from Speaker Pro Tem Billman. You gotta be quiet tonight.
You might have to defer this, but do you know the requirements or like, I guess the marks for expulsion as far as unexcused absences from student senate go?
I do not.
It's 3. So, any further questions? Seeing none, next up is debate in the negative. Blake, I know you read off a list of debate earlier, but I'm just going to go with what's new because I can't keep track off of that. So I apologize if there's anyone I skipped that put it in earlier. You'd have to just put it in again. Debate in the negative would go to intern Blood on the bill next.
Thank you. Overall, I 100% think this bill is a great idea to provide more equity and involvement for our student body. However, I think given that it's a constitutional amendment, I find that there's a couple lines that are somewhat ambiguous. And before we send this off to our college caucuses and then make this part of our constitution, that, you know, potentially may require another amendment down the line to clarify this, I think it should be something that we look at and discuss. Mainly, that's the lines of spring or summer of their term in line 48, and then as well as the fall and spring semesters of line 54. The fact is that the term starts for student senators in April and then ends the prior April. So there's 2 spring terms, and that which spring term isn't defined. And so we really need to define that spring term because these are limitations on when we're allowing people to be student senators. And as a previous speaker mentioned at the beginning and introduction of this bill, the nature of this bill is to allow someone to potentially graduate in the fall. And the way this is worded in my mind doesn't allow for that to happen because it still requires them to maintain that 1 credit hour in the fall and the spring semester. And so for us to pass this in the spirit of that legislation, we would need to amend that before going through. Otherwise, I would urge you to vote nay against this amendment. And I'll stand for any questions.
There's a question from Cox Theater Kid.
Hello again. Sorry, I've had a lot of questions tonight. As it stands right now, for students to file to run for Senate, is there any system that checks their credit hours or the amount of hours enrolled in for the next semester? Does that system check any of that? Do you know?
I defer.
I can answer that. No, flat no. Our election system is not that advanced. No, just no.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess Kelly had something to add. Kelly, can you chime in on anything else there?
Yes, sorry, trying to find my mute button. Actually, when students file for Senate positions or any position that you file for through CASIS actually does check to make sure that 1, you're an enrolled student, and 2, that you meet the minimum qualifying GPA. So yes, the election system does not, but the filing system does.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for that clarification, Kelly. Next question is Chair Colburn, who has one.
Yeah, do you think that, I guess, why do you think fall and spring is not in the spirit of how our system actually works? Can you just explain that a little more?
It's more in the spirit of this specific piece of legislation. And so in my mind, if the way it's written, you would have to be in Senate for this spring, right? So I'm a senator-elect, so I have to be in 1 credit hour. Under this legislation, I have to be in 1 credit hour right now. Then I'd have to be in 1 credit hour in the fall. And then also 1 credit hour in the following spring while I finish out my term because because of it being there in spring or summer of their term of office in line 48 into 49. And so for that to allow you to graduate in the fall or to graduate in December, I feel that would need to be just clarified there to make it easier to understand for everyone in that process. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question? The spirit's to allow you to graduate at semester of the fall, and I don't feel that the legislation is written in a clarifying way to do that. You need to potentially say first spring. I don't exactly know how I would amend it to fulfill that requirement, but.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, Vice President-elect and Director Koger, you have the floor next.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this pretty short, pretty sweet. I know we have bedtimes coming up, but I really like the sentiment that Senator Solomon said earlier about the democratic process. The thing that I keep going back to as I think about this bill is the fact that we don't have the ability as student senators to undermine the vote that the student body cast. We aren't elected as people appointed by the Senate. We're elected as a student body putting forward their voice and That's what brings us to the body. So if the person has 1 credit hour, they're doing a yoga class in the rec, so be it. They can represent in the Senate. I think that it's less about the quantity of credit hours that they're taking and more about the belief and just the voice of the students that put them into the office. I stand for questions, and I'm sorry that that wasn't eloquent.
Are there any questions for Director Koger?
Give me the beans.
Seeing none. Next debate in the negative would be Senator Koch. You have the floor next.
Hello, and thank you. Okay, so a couple points I want to make. First off, we've kind of discussed a couple times about how taxation without representation, and I just think that the requirement of I pay the privilege fee, so I should be able to represent other students is kind of not a worthwhile argument, because there's still other requirements to be like a state senator or US senator other than just paying taxes. You have to be a certain age and have a certain citizenship in the United States or live in your state for a certain amount of time. So there's more requirements than just having to pay taxes. Originally, this was set for full-time students, which is 12 credit hours. And let's see. This 12 credit hour requirement isn't unusual by any means. There's several other organizations on campus that require this 12-hour commitment, as well as like student athletes. They have to be enrolled in 12 credit hours. So I don't think this is unusual by any means. Another point I would like to add is that students that would be graduating sooner, when they graduate sooner, then there's going to be a vacant spot. During that time between having their spot filled by an interim senator, their college isn't represented. And from what I understand, like the College of Architecture, before I was an interim senator, it was kind of a vacant spot for quite a while. I'm not entirely sure on that, so I could be corrected. And finally, there are going to be extenuating cases where students will want to be a part of Senate, but maybe in like 9 credit hours or 6 credit hours. And I believe that we have the Senate Operations Committee for that purpose. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Senator Koch? Seeing none, Senator Kroslow, it's you for positive debate next. Senator Grills, that motion is still out of order. We still need one more debate in the negative after this. Before that's, I'll announce it when it's in line.
A previous speaker used the words, and I believe I captured them as they were spoken, the vast majority of student experience. That right there is purposely exclusive. It lets people believe that there is some sort of standard student experience and that students should fit a mold. I would like to argue that that's not an appropriate way for the SGA to approach representation. I do not mean to impugn the character of the previous speaker who said that. I don't think he meant anything harmful by it, but that is the net result. Now, I'd like to address one other point that we've begun to take as a bit of an axiom. That is that full-time status as a student equates to somehow people care. Well, I don't want to talk about it in terms of something I think. I'd like to talk about something in terms I can prove. Last academic year, I had a team from the SGA come into my classroom and administer a survey. One of those folks is sitting here right now, Lily. Vedant and Trey Kuhlman were on that team as well. They were attempting to assess why students had a high degree of apathy in regards to the student elections. Without violating any FERPA, I can assure you that the vast majority of the students in my classroom were full-time students. And let me go ahead and tell you, most of them had no idea what SGA did, how its elections were run, or how it spoke for them. So folks, the idea that full-time status somehow imparts caring or more interest in your local community is patently false as proven by that survey in my classroom, as well as the rest of the survey that Trey and his team conducted. So I'd like to consider all the previous things we've said about inclusivity, equity, and all of that, and couch that in the understanding that full-time status doesn't make someone a better student or more caring or anything along those lines. We shouldn't be in the business of turning anyone away. We should be in the business of bringing them in.
Are there any questions for Senator Kraslow? Seeing none, we are all caught up on debate in the negative. Is there any additional debate in the negative at this time? Okay, so I just got a lot of DMs. So since there was no debate in the negative, the motion to close debate is now in order. However, since this was my bill, I just wanted the opportunity to speak on it one last time before people close debate, if people are comfortable with that. I want to speak just, yeah, since it's mine and I carried it and everything, that's all. So if there's no more debate in the negative, I'll take the next debate in the positive if people would be willing to grant me that. Okay, so since I'm seeing no motion in the chat, I'm going to go right now. And I just want to say, once a year, there's a bill that takes 2 or 3 hours that's about equitability in Student Senate and about access. And every year, to be honest, until this year, I think I'm someone who starts on the no side and has actually had to flip my mind to be on the yes side. For those who aren't aware, the first bill I'm thinking of is my freshman year when I was an intern. It was actually my first meeting as an interim student senator for the College of Arts and Sciences. There was a bill that amended the Student Governing Association intern program. That bill changed the intern program from being an exclusivity-based one that only allowed 30 students for the year into the program to being one that allows any student who wants to come in. I debated in the negative against that bill in my very first meeting as an interim student senator and regret that debate to this very day, because the very next year I was intern program coordinator and fell in love with that new program. I reached over 115 students that year who attended an hour-long meeting. I would argue that that is why our debates go on so long now, is because most of my interns who I had more of and who are more engaged and more thoughtful and more caring than I could have ever imagined and have continued to stay involved is because we opened up our program and made ourselves more accessible to the student body than we had ever been before. And we missed out on a lot of excellent talent before then, people who were spurned because they had gotten rejected from that program. Not really anything my sophomore year I can think of, but my junior year, when I was Speaker Pro Tempore, there was a bill that amended the attendance requirements for Student Senate, and the debate took a similar time as it did tonight. I was initially opposed to that because I was Speaker Pro Tem, I was Maggie's position, and I was in charge of roll call. And I thought that if we lowered our attendance requirements, that it would lower our quality of people and stuff involved. This year, I lowered the requirements even beyond what that bill are when I've extended to all of you, and we have had, on average, higher attendance when we are like gracious and accepting and equitable to people's different circumstances. Again, the pandemic has obviously played a huge role in that, but by making like our space more equitable, more open, and like more forgiving, we've gotten far more people, far more average involvement. Seriously, in past years, we would not have close to 40 people on a call by this point. We would be desperate for quorum at the second to last meeting at like past 9 p.m. in a term. I cannot stress to all of you how there has never been a time when we have gone for equitability that it has worked poorly or against SGA's favor. That every time we have worked to expand equitability, it has only worked out for the best in the end. I was elected as speaker by all of you because you trusted me and my leadership. And after a lot of thought and reflection, and after years in this organization, I genuinely think that this bill would get more students involved. Again, as I've said before, there's already a senator who doesn't meet the credit hour requirements now, and I would love to see that expanded in the future. But there's never been a time when pursuing equitability has worked against us, and I don't think that it would happen now. If anything, it has only worked out for our best, and that's a journey that's taken me years to realize. And I would implore all of you who are taking the chance to vote on this bill now to really think critically about whether you're committed to something just because it's the status quo and you're used to it and it's familiar, or whether you're willing to abandon the status quo for something that's a little bit scarier, but really exciting and brings a lot of new potential and new opportunities to us that will only enhance our Student Senate experience. So with that, I end my debate and I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Speaker Bothwell? Seeing none.
So yeah, there's no more debate at this time, and the motion to call the previous question is in order. It's been moved by Senator Harmon to close debate, seconded by Senator Glasscock. Are there any objections? I guess, does that technically have to pass by vote? Or I guess it doesn't have to pass by vote if there's no more debate though. We're all caught up on debate, so. Yeah. I'm just gonna say, are there any objections? We'll do a vote if there's objections to closing debate, if people still want to debate this. So seeing none, since debate is closed, we will now proceed into a roll call vote on Bill 43 at this time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Maggie, who will do a roll call vote right now.
Just so everyone can hear this, just a clarifying question. Should I delete all of the previous votes? Or should I just save over them? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so just so everyone knows, the 3/4 number is 45, so. Okay, Atchison. Bain. Bellamy.
Yes.
Booz. Brown.
Yes.
Bruce. Brummett. Burke.
Yes.
Carlson. Carr.
Yes, by proxy.
Clements.
Yes.
Cone. Colburn. Crosslow. Diaz de Leon.
Yes, by proxy.
Dillevue.
Abstain.
Doc. Dunlap.
Yes.
Frederick.
Pass.
People doing a lot of great work.
Glasscock.
But it doesn't help when.
Grills.
Yes.
Gromes. Hamlin. Harmon. Hurd.
Yes.
Heimerman. Hernandez.
Yes.
Hutchings.
Yes.
Jambunathan. James Rose.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
Koch. Cruson.
Yes.
Levi. Manners. McKee.
Yes.
Muthukumar.
Yes.
We'll have it. Knoll.
Yes.
Nunnink.
Abstain.
Panicatu. Thank you. Phillips. Porter. Purdy. Richenberg. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rossi.
Yes.
Salmon. Shear. Shunjay. Thank you. Senator Ben.
Yes.
Senator Blaine.
Yes.
Vance. Volgamore. Wallace.
Yes.
Ward. Thank you. Wells.
Yes.
Willis Jackson.
Abstain.
Willis Reese. and Windholtz. Okay. Before I go back to passes, is there anyone whose name I did not call? Okay. And I did get a DM that Carlson was yes by proxy. And then Senator Frederick, I had you as a pass. Thank you. Okay. Were there any other passes? No. Okay. With that, Bill 43 passes 48 to 0 to 3.
So that was piece of legislation 1 of our agenda. So with that, we will now move on to Bill 44. If the author wants to come forward, Maggie, yeah, this is your bill. You worked on. Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. I do have a quick change that will be added. I had 2 authors added from the Diversity Programming Committee, which were Caleb Francis Walker and I believe Tram Pham was the other author that was added.
Awesome. With that, you have first right to debate.
Yeah, of course, thank you. So this was introduced late last week. So just to give a quick recap of what it does. Chapter 24 of the K-State SGA statutes really lays out the Diversity Programming Committee's, I guess, regulations, and it's very vague. And then back in chapter 21, where all of the student activity fee stuff is laid out, there are some specific, I guess, limitations that are applied to that funding, but it only specifically references travel and on-campus allocations and those limitations. And so really the main focus, well, I think it's about a 50-50 focus of this bill, is to clarify and add to chapter 24. So basically all of that italicized junk at the bottom is just going to be slapped in chapter 24 so that it's easier for the new chair and the new committee to interpret all of that, as well as when we have applicants who submit like a questionable application, we can just submit that or give that to them and be like, hey, this is all of our rules that you have to follow, and not send them like sketchy little excerpts of things that may or may not qualify for them in the first place. The second piece of this legislation allows for the funding of food. And this has been something that has been requested for a long time. I've had several conversations with folks who are members of multicultural student organizations and who are members of just other organizations who want to host diversity programming events and want to have food be a main part of the learning opportunity of that event. My intention is not to allow food to be funded in order for, you know, some random club to buy 500 pizzas to recruit everyone to come. My goal for this is for organizations to have the opportunity to have food at an event so that students who know nothing about a specific culture or group of people or anything like that to come sit down around a dish and have meaningful conversation about what it means to be different from one another, to embrace our differences and celebrate our cultures and appreciate differences that we have. So as you'll see, it says that like it's up to the discretion of the Diversity Programming Committee on what is and isn't funded. So I think that we kind of cover our bases there. And then I will also add that I've had conversation with our accountant, Amy Lee, as well as our advisor, Kelly Ferris, about this. And according to Amy Lee and some other campus partners, we're all on the up and up with like state regulations and stuff for this. So frankly, I don't know why this hasn't happened sooner. We have had to deny funding to groups in the past just because too much of their money was asked for food. And I think that there's a significant need for that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Are there any questions for Speaker Pro Tem Billman about this piece of legislation? Oh, Chair Rodriguez, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just really wanted to be added as an author too.
Oh, Natalia wanted to be added as an author as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I thought I already had you on there.
Yep, we'll get that, Natalia. That's an easy change. Are there any other questions for Speaker Pro Tem Billman? Seeing none, I'll now seek any debate in the negative on this bill. Is there any debate in the negative? Seeing none, it looks like Senator Glasscock has additional debate in the positive. Lily has a mic you can use.
Hey everyone, just wanted to quickly share my experience and my reasoning for voting yes on this piece of legislation. So firstly, I've spent 2 years in DPC now, and this year, of course, we were during COVID, so we didn't really have any applications for food. But the year before, I can tell you 1/3 to 1/2 of applications, I would say, requested food, and we always had to turn them down, and it was always really disappointing. So that piece of this legislation, I really like. That means in the future, DPC no longer has to turn down or edit out parts of requests that include food, which I think is a great thing because food is a really important part of culture. And I think that we should encourage people to share that. Also, food is really yummy. As for the other part, really just clarifying kind of the set of guidelines that we expect from applications. I think this not only makes it more accessible and easy for the future DPC, but also just easier for people who are applying for this funding. It makes it a lot more simple for them. And kind of breaking away from where we were just following OCAC and travel, specifically in the realm of food, makes it a lot more clear of what we expect as DPC from applications, which I think encourages and makes it more accessible for people to apply. With that, I conclude my debate and yield the rest of my time to questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Glasscock? Seeing none, is there any additional debate in the negative on this bill? Is there any additional debate in the positive on this bill? Is there any additional debate at all on this bill? Seeing none, we'll now proceed into a roll call vote led by Speaker Pro Tem Billman.
Atchison? Bain? Bellamy?
Yes.
Booz? Brown?
Yes.
Bruce? Brummett? Burke? Carlson? Carr?
Yes, by proxy.
Clements?
Yes.
Cone? Colburn? Croslow? Sorry. Diaz de Leon? Of course. All right. Dillaboo.
Yes.
Oh my God. I'm going to keep going. Doc. Okay. Dunlap.
Yes.
Frederick. Glasscock. Grills. Gromez. Hamlin. Harmon.
Yes.
Hurd.
Yes.
Heimerman. Hernandez.
Yes.
Hutchings.
Yes.
Jane Bunathan. James Rose.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
Koch. Cruson.
Yes.
Levi. Manners. McKee.
Yes.
Muthukumar. Thank you. Knoll.
Yes.
Nunnink.
Yes.
Panikatu. Thank you. Phillips. Porter. Thank you. Purdy. Richenberg. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rossi.
Yes.
Salmon. Shear. Shunjay. Thank you. Senator Ben.
Yes.
Senator Blaine.
Yes.
Bonts. Vogelmore. Wallace. Ward. Thank you. Wells.
It'll be a yes for me.
Willis Jackson.
Yes.
Willis Reese. And Windholtz. Yeah, okay. Let me go back and fix a couple. Is there anyone whose name I did not call? All right. With that, Bill 44 passes 48 to 0. Thank you, everyone.
Next up on the agenda, we have Bill 45. If the author wants to, please come forward.
Hello, that is me. My name's Sarah. I am the chairman of the On-Campus Allocations Committee. So yeah, basically the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students wants to invite speaker Brian Lee for their event Design, Power, and Place. That's going to be on March 31st, 2021. Lee's going to be speaking about intercultural and social justice issues within the field of design and architecture. There will be a facilitation of dialogues on design justice and expanding community access. They're expecting around 500 guests to attend, and they're requesting around $2,500 for speaker fees. My committee talked about this, and we saw significant educational value in it. So that's why we moved to fund them the whole amount. If that's kind of the end of my debate, I'm open to any questions that you guys may have about the event or the speaker. I watched a TED Talk that the speaker put out, so.
Are there any questions for Chair Pelton about her debate? I see that there's a motion in the chat. I will get to that after we close debate on this issue. So, seeing none, thank you, Sarah, for your debate. Is there any debate in the negative on Bill 45? Seeing none, additional in the positive, Speaker Pro Tem Billman.
Yeah, sorry, this is going to be super quick, but I wanted to thank the committee for taking on this one. This is actually one that DPC had to reject just because part of it didn't meet like our minimum. Anyway, so I just want to thank them and encourage you all to vote yes on this. I can't vote, but I encourage you to vote yes.
Intern Blood, is that for me? You have a question?
I was just wondering if anyone else had the issue of not being able to find this organization in Org Central when searching for it, or if you had any knowledge on why that would be an issue.
You might want to check both NOMAS and National Organization of Minority Architecture Students. I know for a fact, like, these bills don't come to us if they're not registered because CSI has to approve them before the committee even meets with them. So, like, if there's an Org Central has lots of issues. I'm just going to say it right now. There's a reason why Kelly got up and asked for volunteers to look for a new thing. I do not think that is the most reliable metric, but I know for a fact that this organization meets regularly and is existing for quite a while. I funded them when I was Speaker Pro Tem for DPC. So trust me, if it's gotten to this point, they're A-okay. With that, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 45? Is there any additional debate in the positive on Bill 45? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor by Chair Colburn to bulk roll call Bills 45, 46, and 47. All that means is that we would vote on them simultaneously. And that was seconded. So like, if you disagree with one bill, you can still say like, yes to this one, no to this one, if you would like to. Is there any objection? I'm just gonna do this by objection right now. Are there any objections to bulk roll calling those three bills? They're all allocation bills, so. Seeing none, we will just do one vote all at the end for all of them. Next up on our agenda is Bill 46. With the allocation of sports club funds, if the author would please come forward, you have first right to debate.
Hi guys. So this is the sports club allocations bill. I introduced it last week, if you guys remember, but basically my whole committee went through this. We spent a very long, excruciating, like 5-hour meeting on a Saturday, nailing down all these numbers. Nate, will you go to the bill, or whoever's running the computer, please?
You adjust. Sorry. We have like multiple computers up. It's confusing who's on what.
No, it's okay. You may notice that Rock Climbing Club only did not receive any funding. If you were not here last week, I will explain real quick to avoid any problems with that. They were not present at the meeting and still have yet to contact me. So they are not eligible to receive funding. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Lots of groups were funded their full amount, which was amazing this year. That usually doesn't get to happen. But I now stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Jonak about her debate?
Should I even do my like long?
Question from Intern Blood again. Oh, you need to sit up closer to the front, dude.
When you chose the names for the organizations in the bill, what was the like standard you chose? Did you use what was in their bylaws, or what was on Org Central, or what was or did you just like shorten those? What was the reasoning for that?
Are you talking about like the club names on the side?
Correct.
I went off of what was on the BRF. So the form that they filled out themselves is what we went off of.
So that, I guess, a question for the chair on that. When we're passing this legislation, what names are we required to have on there to properly, I guess?
This actually came up because, yeah, what's on Org Central doesn't match for a couple of them, but to be honest, it doesn't matter. Like, it's the same clubs that apply every year. We know who the contact people are. So I actually advised Carissa to do what was on their form. That was the advice I gave her when filling this out. So it's all good.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then Chair Booz, you have the next question.
All right. Yeah, I noticed that we only have the account numbers for 2 of them. Do we have the account numbers of the other ones that we can put on there?
That one I can answer right now since I'm here. So those are the only 2 that are DSOs that have accounts. The others are all ISOs, so they don't have accounts. They just receive like a check cut to them. So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It might be helpful to have that on like this sort of bill in the future, but yeah, thanks.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on this bill? Is there any additional debate in the positive on this bill? Advisor Ferris also put something in the chat for anyone who wants to read it. Is there any additional debate at all on this bill? Seeing none, we'll hold this and do just one quick round. We'll do this for our bulk roll call all at the end. Max, if you could scroll to the next bill for us. Next up on our agenda is Bill 47 from the On-Campus Allocations Committee. If the author would like to come forward, you have first right to debate.
Cool, sorry, I'm pulling up my summary. Yeah, so basically Call to Greatness is a campus ministry whose goals are to connect students to a ministry, provide opportunities to serve their communities and to build relationships. On September 28th, 2021, they want to host Speaker Lauren Mers, who is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at nonprofit organization Live Action. Mers will be providing information about chemical abortions, emergency contraceptives, and resources that are available to students. The event would focus on Mers speaking for a period of time. Then there would be a opportunity for facilitated discussion and a Q&A session with those in attendance. Pretty much they just requested funds to cover speaker fees for Mers to come and speak. $1,500 total. Committee unanimously decided when we met with them to fund them the full of $1,500. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Pelton at this time? There's a question from Chair Colburn.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, so I might be remembering wrong, but I think that someone abstained in the recommendation out of committee. Could you just kind of speak to that and why someone did?
Yes, so one of our at-large members spoke to me and said that he wanted to abstain from the vote just because he wanted to hear kind of what other people had to say about the bill and look into more of the research on it by himself. This member that abstained from voting was not at the original meeting where we decided funding. if that makes sense.
Are there any further questions for Chair Pelton? Question from Intern Blood again.
Do you know if this organization has done any fundraising efforts at all to cover some of the costs for this speaker?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pulling up their BRF right now, so give me 1 second. I know that they definitely mentioned fundraising on there. Let me scroll down here. Yeah, so they have funding from their year of ministry from Called to Greatness Ministries corporate in Lawrence. They didn't specify how much those funds were, but they definitely said that they had funds in their back pocket in case we were unable to fund them the full amount.
Are there any further questions for Chair Pelton? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 47? Is there any additional debate in the positive on Bill 47? Is there any additional debate at all on Bill 47? Seeing none, we will now move into a roll. I can help with the camera issue, Maggie, if you would take over for the roll call vote. So this is for all three bills right now. 45, the no mess allocation. 46 is the sports club allocation, and 47 is the Called to Greatness one. Please remember that you can say yes to all, no to all, yes to all by proxy, no to all by proxy. You can single out bills. So if you would like to say yes to these two, no to this, this is just a more expedient way to vote. So, but don't feel like you're obligated to do anything together. So Maggie, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. So one more time, 45 is no moss, 46 is sports clubs, and then 47 is Called to Greatness. So Atchison. Okay. Bain. Bellamy.
Yes to all.
Booz. Brown.
Yes to all.
Bruce. Brummett. Burke. Carlson. Thank you. Carr.
Yes to all by proxy.
Clements.
Yes to all.
Cone. Colburn. Croslow. Diaz de Leon.
Yes to all by proxy.
Delavu.
Yes to all.
Doc. Dunlap.
Yes to all.
Frederick. Glasscock. Okay. Sorry. Grills.
Yes to all.
Gromez. Okay. Hamlin. Harmon. Hurd.
Yes to all.
Heimerman. Hernandez.
Yes to all.
Hutchings. Jambunathan. James Rose.
Yes to all.
Kidd.
Yes to all.
Koch. Cruson.
Yes to all.
Levi. Manners. McKee.
Yes to all.
Muhukumar. Thank you. Knoll.
Yes to all.
Nunink.
Yes to all.
Panikatu. Thank you. Porter, or I'm sorry, Phillips. Porter. Thank you. Purdy. Richenberg. Rodriguez. Thank you. Rossi.
Yes.
Oh. Salmon. Shear. Shunjae? Thank you. Senator Ben?
Yes to all.
Senator Blaine?
Yes to all.
Bonts? Bulgamore? All right, Wallace? Thank you. Ward? Thank you. Wells?
Yes to all.
Willis Jackson?
Yes to all.
Willis Reese? And Windholtz. Is there anyone whose name I did not call? Okay, with that, Bill 45 passes 48 to 0. Bill 46 passes 48 to 0. And then let me do some math. Bill 47 passes 43 to 5-1. No, that would be 42 to 5-1. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all. That's everything we needed to vote on tonight. We are about 10 minutes away from being kicked out of the building. I would like to try to get through as much as possible in that time period. I think we can get pretty close to finishing up. Can I get a motion to allow all remaining authors to summarize? Moved by Caucus Leader Phillips. Can I get a second on that from Senator Wells? And then can I just get a motion to consider everything right now before the body as well? Moved by Atchison. Can I get a second on that? Seconded from Hurd. Awesome. So I understand that there's a lot. Please ask questions and stuff as you need to. But again, since last week is our next week of Senate, it is important that we get all these introduced. We might stay a little bit after 10 if we're like one bill away from being done. So with that, will the author of Bill 48 please come forward and you can summarize.
All right, so Bill 48 deals with Chapter 6.2 of the statutes, and that is with the SHAC Student Health Advisory Committee. And this committee hasn't been utilized in the past few years. It was started like, I think in the 60s, but it hasn't been utilized in recent times. And part of the reason was because it wasn't very feasible. It was a very large committee considering what it oversaw. But that doesn't mean it's not still important, and we're just like trying to reorganize it so that it is sustainable for the future. And so what we did was we decreased the amount of members, and we've worked with Jim Parker on this to ensure that it is more feasible. And the one thing that I do want to note on it is the bottom part of it, lines 130 through 141, the statement of limitations. That is still in the process of being discussed at the moment with Jim Parker as well as the authors of this bill. And yeah, I think that's about all I have. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We will now move on to Bill 49. Will the author of Bill 49 please come forward?
Actually, you guys.
Okay.
Yes, if you all don't mind, I will summarize the bottom piece, the actual amendment, but the whereas clauses were pretty like intentionally written to explain it. So whereas, I guess also just a little bit, KSUSGA should continue to revise and update its governing docs in order to promote a culture of efficiency and inclusivity. Whereas the student standing rules are where we govern the procedures of Senate, whereas Robert's Rules of Order is the parliamentary authority for both Student Senate and nearly all deliberative organizations in the US. According to Robert's Rules of Order, debate is termed to mean discussion of the merits of a pending issue, whereas discussion of an issue's merits and arguments for and against its adoption are inherently values-based and subjective, whereas Robert's Rules outlines principles for effective debate that include confining remarks to the merits of the pending issue, refraining from attacking a member's motives, and addressing all remarks through the chair, Whereas questions addressed to a speaker regarding their debate and opinion are almost always veiled counterpoints that would be better expressed as a separate piece of debate. Whereas the current system of dictating a set amount of time for questions after every piece of debate does not often contribute relevant value to the decision-making process, alienates and intimidates those who debate, greatly lengthens and bogs down the deliberative process, and provides shelter for opposing opinions to express their opposition without providing their own debate or providing novel information to the body. Whereas the current question system contributes to a culture where speakers are intimidated to express their opinion, and debate is viewed as a defensive argument instead of free exploration of thoughts and ideas. Whereas the Senate standing rules governing debate currently conflict with both common practice of business executing organizations and the principles governing debate in Robert's Rules by allowing for questions of a speaker regarding the contents and by extension opinions of their debate. Whereas in the event of a genuine need to clarify information or ask questions important to the assembly, mechanisms already exist through which to conduct such inquiries. Question of privilege, point of information, and parliamentary inquiries being the three examples that are well governed by Robert's Rules and are designed to only be used as the need arises. Thus, they're incidental motions. And thus, Student Senate would not be robbed of its ability to conduct business if such questions arise. And whereas the removal of these 12 words will greatly contribute to increased efficiency, freedom of expression, and inclusivity in the conduction of business by Student Senate, be it enacted that we make these amendments, which are the striking of a total of 12 words in the statutes. And those words are enumerating that there be 3 minutes for questions regarding the debate in the piece about time limits for debate. And then 2 words right down there that changes to legislation be followed by a debate period instead of a question and debate period. Those are the amendments. What questions are there?
Yeah, Chair Booz, I'm seeing you have a question. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking back to earlier tonight, and like especially with Nathan's first debate on Bill 43, we like obviously the body had a lot of questions for him. How would you see kind of that situation working out under this system?
I am extremely glad you brought up that exact circumstance because I was wanting to mention it to answer that question. I think that's a perfect example of a time where we spent a huge amount of Senate's energy and time asking questions of a speaker that was clearly in the positive, and the whole point of that debate should have been for the negative side to express their dissent and then to counterpoint those negatives because it was a clear majority. We spent like 20 minutes in an echo chamber where the positive side was kind of reinforcing itself. And the whole point of reconsidering that debate was for the negative side to express its novel information. And so I think that's a perfect example of a time when questions didn't contribute new information to the body.
Yeah, Senator Glasscock, go for it.
Yeah, just to clarify for myself here, I'm unsure of how this is legislated, or I guess it's not legislated, but for the speaker and pro tempore elections, how would that fit in, like questions for themselves presenting? I guess it's a form of debate.
That one I can answer. There's specific time allotted for questions of those candidates. If this were to pass, it would mean you couldn't ask candidates of those debating in favor of a certain candidate then. So like, if you got up to debate for me, people couldn't ask you questions about debating for me, but you would still ask me questions after I give my presentation to the body.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Like this is only removing questions from debate. So like introduction and like those other pieces that like where questions makes a lot more sense, totally intact.
Are there any further questions?
Thanks, everyone.
Next up is Bill 50. If the author will please come forward. It's a privilege fee one. Oh.
Yeah, I'm here, just on screen. Are you ready for me?
Yeah, you can go. You can just summarize.
Okay, perfect. So this is a piece of legislation that is essentially changing the requirements for privilege fee advisory councils. Currently, every entity is required to have an advisory council, which is basically a group with a majority of students who just give advice and recommendations to the entity. They don't have any power. They're just there to serve as a sounding board for students. And currently the requirements say that you cannot be a student employee and be on that board. This conversation mostly started because Jim Parker of Lafine wanted to have some of his WellCat ambassadors and Thrive navigators on his advisory council, but some of those employees are compensated. And so we thought that this would be an opportunity to really just amplify student voices. Oftentimes student employees are people who know those organizations the best and who are really able to give beneficial feedback. And since it is an advisory council and it only gives recommendations, it doesn't have any true power within it. We didn't feel like there were any downsides of letting compensated employees be on those boards.
Are there any questions for Chair Brown? Seeing none, thank you, Madison. With that, we'll now go to Bill 51. Will the author please come forward? Max, can you scroll for us?
Thanks. So this bill is just correcting a little bit more of the statutes because there was a bit in the statutes that did require, that did like mention that the speaker was going to be like reintroduce their campaign and also have another like little question period before debate on the second meeting of the newly elected student senate. We just changed the stuff in the either the bylaws or the Constitution. And this is the stuff in the statutes that we missed when we were looking at it in the first place. And so I just wrote a little thing to get it in there before we end the term.
Are there any questions for Chair Booz? Seeing none, are you also the author of 52?
Oh yeah.
The library. Oh no, that's.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can.
Okay, Bill 52 is exactly what Chair Booz was just talking about. We went through the statutes. Chapter 64 is about the KSU Libraries Advisory Committee, which currently is not a thing and hasn't really been a thing for a while. So the suggestion is not to stop communicating with the library. It's just to get rid of this chapter of the statutes.
Are there any questions for Senator Bain? Seeing none, then we'll move on to Bill 53. If the author will please come forward, this is the Wildcat Watch.
Hello, so this is legislation that is going to be decreasing the Wildcat Watch equipment reserve. Wildcat Watch is an organization on campus that does video production services for students and their organization. So for example, I think they've collaborated with SGA working on videos to like explain funding, explain SGA, etc. Their reserve equipment account is specifically focused at updating their equipment as well as purchasing services. They previously were funded $15,000 and this allocation changes them to $5,000, $15,000 to $5,000. And that is around a 66% decrease. So that's definitely something to notice. But some of our reasoning for that was in previous years, there was a surplus in that account, as well as they did not have strong reasoning for expenditures that they were going to be using in that account going forward.
Questions? Oh, yeah, sorry. Are there any questions for Chair Brown? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Madison. Will the author of Bill 54 please come forward?
It's me again.
Yay, hi.
So this is the Wildcat Watch operations account. So this account is being decreased by 40%, which I know is a large amount, but one of the reasons for that is because they do have a pretty large surplus from year to year. I will upload the documents on OrgSync, but they essentially had a surplus of like $6,798 in fiscal year 20. Obviously that was different because of COVID, but in fiscal year 19, 18% of their budget was surplus. So one of the reasons for the large decrease is because they currently do have so much in their account, as well as they've also been shifting from working mostly with student organizations to incorporating in more paid partnerships. And so they also are increasing their revenues through that way, which will also offset the decrease.
Are there any questions for Chair Brown about this bill? Seeing none, we only have one resolution left. If Chair Booz, if you want to come forward and give it.
All right, Resolution 61 is approval of the 2021 Kansas election, KSU SGA election results. And so a couple of key things to note here is that this is required by the statutes and the elections regulations that the elections commissioner basically transmits the election results to the Senate Operations Committee. And the Senate Operations Committee authors this resolution. And so, and that Student Senate cannot amend this. So it's an up or down vote on like, were these election results correct? And you know, they were. The other thing to note is that there are some people in the election results have notations by them based on whether they were a write-in. And so, and whether they accepted or declined the position as of when I submitted this, this application. So that's Health and Human Sciences and some of the graduate school senators as well. So, and then basically that vacancies will be filled in the same way that we've normally filled them, and we'll send it to all the deans of all the colleges.
Are there any questions for, Cox Leader Phillips asked, do we know who the 8th grad senator is yet?
We do not. That is something I'm still working on.
Awesome. Are there any further questions? Senator Salmon.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned during my committee report is that on Monday, Senate Operations went and chose 3 out of those 4 to be sworn in immediately. The other person has still accepted, so the bill is still correct, but they will be sworn in later.
Are there any further questions for Chair Booz? Yeah, thank you, Maggie, for clarifying that. Seeing no further questions, thank you all. That has exhausted our legislative agenda for the evening. In the interest of time, and because we're going to get kicked out of the business building, are people comfortable not having a second open period tonight? We'll have, next week will be a banquet, so we can have time to informally engage then. We will also skip second roll call. However, I did want to let everyone know on reference of legislation, only 2 committees are getting referred things, even though there's a lot of stuff. So Senate Ops will be referred Bill 48 and Bill 49. So that's the one about changing the Student Health Advisory Committee and the statutes, and then the one about standing rules. Privilege fee, we'll get the one about advisory committees, so Bill 50, Bills 51 and 50, Bill 51 about the election date, and then Bill 52 about the libraries also go to Ops. 53 and 54, the privilege fee ones will be in privilege fee to be voted on, and then Resolution 61 about the election results will also be in Senate Operations. So those 2 committees both have a lot to do or to vote on for reference before our final meeting. With that, thank you all for this long meeting. It was very long, but I also felt like it was one of the healthiest debates I've seen in quite a while. I thought it was very good, so I appreciate everyone taking the time to engage in a really functional way. With that, I will now seek a motion to adjourn. Oh, I just wanted to call on Marcus because he does it every week, but I don't know if he's going to do it. Okay, well, yeah, there was a motion to adjourn by Cox Leader Phillips in the room. It was seconded by Senator Kraslow. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for the meeting. I really appreciate it.